Chapter 1974. Since I can't dodge, I won't dodge. Facing such a terrifying arrow, Yi Shiwen actually said that he wouldn't dodge. His hands tore open a huge golden pillar of light in the void and instantly met the terrifying sun-shooting arrow that was sweeping over. Boom! After a thousandth of a second, the terrifying sun-shooting arrow and Yi Shiwen finally collided fiercely. With a loud bang, a terrifying power splashed out, swept into countless tornadoes, and spread out in all directions. Walla! The space fluctuated violently like the surface of water and constantly distorted. Everyone looked over and saw that Yi Shiwen did not show the slightest bit of fear in the face of the incomparably terrifying arrow. Even his expression did not change much. The golden light pillar that was torn open by his hands was continuously torn apart and turned into powder. However, he continued to reconstruct it. His entire body slid continuously in the air, and the terrifying power that leaked out from under his feet left a huge mark in the void. It was a shocking sight to behold. Everyone thought that Yi Shiwen wouldn't be able to hold on and would be nailed to death by the sun-shooting arrow. However, Yi Shiwen suddenly roared in the void. The entire void suddenly exploded with a loud bang. Yi Shiwen's hand directly penetrated the sun-shooting arrow that was burning with raging flames. Clang! Yi Shiwen caught the incomparably terrifying sun-shooting arrow with his bare hands. It was as if a huge bell had been ringing in the sky. All the airwaves were suppressed by Yi Shiwen. Everyone was stunned. They were completely stunned. To be more precise, everyone stood there dumbfounded. They could not believe what they had just seen. It was like a dream. Just how frightening was the might of that arrow. Even though they were only watching from afar, they were still able to sense its frightening might. Even a mid-profound death stage expert would be pierced through on the spot by that arrow. He had actually caught it alive. What kind of rhythm was this? This was completely illogical. It had completely subverted their previous understanding. Everyone was dumbfounded. It wasn't just the spectating experts. Even Diwu Sadness, who was standing in the middle of the field, was completely shocked. He knew very well how powerful his arrow was, because Yi Shiwen gave him a very dangerous feeling, so he didn't dare to relax in the slightest. He went all out without holding back. Therefore, the power of this arrow was quite amazing. However, it was caught so easily. It was hard for him to believe that this arrow was caught so easily. His physical body was already abnormally strong. He had never seen anyone whose physical body was so strong that they could take his sun-shooting arrow head-on and still be fine. His observation was very keen. He could tell from Yi Shiwen's shocking speed that Yi Shiwen's body was equally tyrannical. Because if one's physical body wasn't strong enough, just the terrifying pressure alone would be enough to cause one's physical body to automatically disintegrate and collapse, not to mention anything else. It was just that no matter what, he had never imagined that he would be this strong. You want to kill me with just one arrow? You're looking down on me too much, Yi Shiwen said lightly. The sun-shooting arrow in his hand crumbled bit by bit. He crushed it alive and turned it into spiritual energy that filled the sky. Ever since he absorbed the divinity of the little demon god, Yi Shiwen's divinity had almost doubled, and the power of his gilded tyrant form had also become more powerful. If it was before, he wouldn't have been able to do this unscathed. If this is all you have, I'm afraid you are no match for me, Yi Shiwen said lightly. It seems that I have underestimated you a bit, Diwu Sadness said with narrowed eyes. His gaze was as sharp as an eagle's. Then show me some of your strength. Yi Shiwen's voice had not yet faded when he appeared in front of Diwu Sadness. The long sword in his hand turned into a long sword river, directly stabbing towards Diwu Sadness. The entire sky rumbled, and the momentum was like thunder, directly bombarding Diwu Sadness's body. Not good. This time Diwu Sadness is in trouble. He has completely closed in on him, someone exclaimed. However, more people held their breaths. It seemed as if they were completely frightened. It seemed as if the offensive and defensive situation had been completely reversed after Yi Shiwen had revealed his earth-shattering body. Diwu Sadness, who was originally on the offensive, was now completely on the defensive. Archers weren't the only ones who understood what it meant for them to be closed in. Clang! There was a huge roar. When Yi Shiwen's long sword slashed down, a huge light shield suddenly appeared around Diwu's sadness, enveloping him. This light shield shone with 5 colors, splashing in all directions. There was a faint immortal aura, and it even seemed to have the sound of wind and thunder. When Yi Shiwen's long sword was about to slash down, it encountered a huge resistance. It was completely blocked 10 feet away, unable to get close. What is this light shield? How can it be so powerful? Yi Shiwen's long sword can't do anything to it. Someone asked, not very understanding. That is one of the unique skills of the Diwu family. Great Splendor Sun Corona. An experienced old monster clearly knew something. Everyone in the Diwu family is a supreme existence in the art of archery. After countless years, how could they not know what kind of weaknesses they have? Their speed is not fast, and their strength in close combat can be said to be better than nothing. In order to deal with this kind of situation, the ancestors of the Diwu family created this technique to allow the disciples of the Diwu family to deal with this kind of situation. Although this Great Splendor Sun Corona looks ordinary, it is incomparably sturdy. To break through it, one must be many times stronger than him, or wait for him to use up all his chi. Only then will it be possible. However, Yi Shiwen's sword strike had only set off a layer of ripples when it had collided with this huge light shield. In fact, not even a crack had appeared on it. If this goes on, won't the two sides be in a stalemate? Although Yi Shiwen cannot break through the defense of the Great Splendor Sun Corona, Diwu Hard-Hearted cannot do anything to Yi Shiwen either. Not to mention his wind-like speed, just his physical body alone is enough to crush everything. The situation between the two sides seemed to be even again. Both sides had astonishing foundations that couldn't be broken by ordinary people. As a result, everyone had a whole new understanding of how powerful the two of them were. All kinds of astonishing martial arts were released. If not for the fact that their opponents were each other, ordinary experts at the peak of the profound death realm would have been completely defeated, or even killed. Yi Shiwen, I admit that you are very special. You are the most special person I have seen so far. You can be considered powerful, but it is useless. You cannot break through my Great Splendor Sun Corona. Everything you have is useless to me. I have been invincible since I was born, Diwu Hard-Hearted said with a cold expression. As he spoke, Diwu Hard-Hearted made a posture of drawing a bow. A longbow and an arrow automatically formed in his hand. My strength is not limited to this, Diwu Hard-Hearted said indifferently. Another desolate scene unfolded. What was even more frightening was that it was another sun-shooting arrow. If an ordinary mid-stage profound death stage expert did not dodge this arrow, he or she would be pierced on the spot. There was no other possibility. Swoosh! The sun-shooting arrow once again swept out with the same mighty power. It should have been used as a trump card, but in Diwu Hard-Hearted's hands, it was like an ordinary move. He did not even need to take a breather. Everyone was amazed. The chi in Diwu Hard-Hearted's body had most likely reached a certain level. Otherwise, he would have been panting by now, just like Yi Shiwen when he used the Emergence Immortal Exterminating Saber. Now, the murderous aura of the Emergence Immortal Exterminating Saber could no longer affect him. He had even slowly figured out how to use it, but he still lacked the strength to use it. Every time he used it, it could be said that the chi in his body was completely drained. Although its power was quite shocking, the price was still a little high. But Diwu Hard-Hearted's sun-shooting arrow seemed to have no such restrictions. The two arrows were used almost without any gap. Whoosh! The arrow light dragged a long tail and directly swept towards Yi Shiwen. It's useless. I've said before, this kind of attack is useless against me. Yi Shiwen shouted loudly, spread out his hands, and directly blocked the arrow. An incomparably loud sound reverberated throughout the entire arena. That huge light arrow directly blasted on Yi Shiwen's palm and rapidly rotated. It seemed as if it wanted to break free from Yi Shiwen's hand and directly penetrate his body. But in the end, after struggling for a long time, it still could not break free from Yi Shiwen's defense and was completely blocked by him. Everyone sighed. Sure enough, such an attack is useless against Yi Shiwen. They could not help but sigh. Yi Shiwen did not even care about this kind of attack. This was indeed a little too shocking. If one arrow is not enough, then what about 10 arrows? Yi Shiwen, I'm very curious how many arrows you can withstand this kind of attack. Perhaps you will break the record of all my enemies. Diwu hard-hearted shouted, and an even more terrifying aura surged from his body. Chapter 1975. Whoosh! 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 More than a dozen arrow lights broke through the vast sky and fiercely rushed towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. Each of these arrows had the same might as the original sun shooting arrow. Yi Shiwen would have been able to deal with one arrow easily. However, these dozen or so arrows had sealed off all his escape routes. Each of these arrows was deadly and rushed towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. Such an explosive way of fighting left the surrounding people dumbfounded. Just how vigorous was his true essence to be able to burst out in such a manner? Everyone felt that Yi Shiwen was in big trouble. His moves were endless. Moreover, he was in an invincible position. How could Yi Shiwen not be in big trouble? It's useless. I've already said that this kind of move is useless. Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. His body suddenly leaped out. He flew straight out like a cannonball. His entire body was incomparably violent. He didn't have the slightest intention of dodging. Whoosh! The shooting sun arrow arrived in front of Yi Shiwen almost instantaneously. It was a matter of life and death. Yi Shiwen clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. The golden fist power expanded and transformed into a universe. The fist power of the universe directly swept out with a loud rumble. Bang! This sun-shooting arrow couldn't even touch Yi Shiwen. It was directly bombarded by his fist and exploded on the spot. It wasn't a match for Yi Shiwen at all. Whoosh! 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 That arrow light was only one of them. Each arrow light swept up a tornado. They were almost shoulder to shoulder. They completely filled the entire space of the martial arts arena. Then, they completely crushed towards Yi Shiwen. Bang! 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 A loud roar resounded. Every roar represented that a sun-shooting arrow had been bombarded by Yi Shiwen's fist. Everyone was incomparably shocked. Previously, when the two of them fought, they still paid attention to the technical content. The endless battle awareness made the whole scene thrilling and exciting. Right now, the fight between the two was purely a contest of strength. Whether it was Diwu Sadness's boundless Zhen Yuan or Yi Shiwen's frighteningly tyrannical body, both relied on brute force. There was not much skill involved, or rather, even if there was, it could only be used as a support. It could not be like before, where he could only rely on pure skill to defeat Diwu Sadness. Whoosh! When Yi Shiwen reappeared, he was already in front of Diwu Qingxin. He threw a punch, and the golden divinity and the vast universe fist intent landed on Diwu Qingxin's great glory sun corona. Boom! The entire Great Splendor Solar Corona technique trembled violently. The Great Splendor Solar Corona technique, which had never had any cracks before, actually began to crack. Furthermore, the cracks continued to spread out as the Great Splendor Solar Corona technique shook violently. Ah! Break for me! Yi Shiwen roared and increased the power in his hand. Finally, even Diwu Qingxin could not withstand Yi Shiwen's monstrous strength. His entire body flew out like a meteor and crashed into the boundary. After a huge crack appeared in the boundary, he tumbled down from the void and created a huge crater in the ground. That's it. It's over for me, Yi Shiwen shouted. He was already at his limit. Although Diwu Qingxin could be considered tyrannical, unfortunately, he had met Yi Shiwen. Clang! There was a loud buzzing sound. In the void, countless spiritual energies began to condense, forming a golden sword. It was mixed with divinity and had endless power. This golden sword grew larger and larger. In a short while, it was already 100 feet long. Boom! This golden long sword fell straight down from the sky, smashing the air along the way, and landed with a loud bang on Diwu Heartbreak. Sigh, it's about to end. Although this Diwu Qingxin is not bad, it's a pity that he met Yi Shiwen. Both of them are at the peak of the profound Death Realm intermediate stage. If they hadn't met each other, their strength could be considered invincible. Someone said with a sigh. His words immediately gained the approval of many people. Indeed, if they didn't meet each other, any one of them could be said to be invincible when facing others. There was no need to worry about failure at all. Where did this Yi Shiwen come from? How is it that even Diwu Qingxin, a disciple of a famous family, is no match for him? Some people say that he is from the martial sect. I wonder if it's true. If it's true, then it's normal. The martial sect is such a powerful sect. It's not strange for them to have such a disciple. But isn't the martial sect disciple Qin Lai? Why is there someone else? Who knows? But with the martial sect's strength and resources, it's not a problem to train two people. Look, something's wrong. Suddenly, someone exclaimed. No! At that critical moment, an extremely explosive aura surged from Diwu Qingxin's body. A huge figure appeared in the air and merged with Diwu's sadness. It's a martial arts avatar. Someone gasped and said. Everyone suddenly came to their senses. That's right. If that huge figure wasn't a martial arts avatar, then what was it? After merging with the archery avatar, Diwu Qingxin's aura suddenly soared to a whole new level. He actually grabbed at the long sword that Yi Shiwen had shot down from the air. He forcefully crushed Yi Shiwen's long sword, revealing Yi Shiwen's figure within it. This arrow will send you to the afterlife. Suddenly, Diwu's sadness shot an arrow at high speed. Rumble! A series of explosions rang out. Amidst this incomparably loud roar, a long arrow grew larger and larger in the air, bringing with it an earth-shattering aura. It was still a sun-shooting arrow, but this arrow was on a completely different level compared to the previous one. It was almost as if it had been reborn. An arrow that could pierce through the sun, moon, and stars with a single shot was astonishing. The fact that Diwu's sadness was able to fight until now had already surprised many people, because such a narrow environment was actually the most disadvantageous environment for archers. But Diwu Qingxin had used almost all of the environment to the extreme. He could be called a top genius. Bang! This earth-shattering arrow had exceeded everyone's expectations. Not only had it failed to injure Yi Shiwen, but it had also been caught by Yi Shiwen in one move. This is impossible. Everyone's eyes almost popped out. They couldn't believe it. How did things turn out like this? They thought that after merging with the martial arts avatar, Diwu Qingxin's combat power would soar, and he should be able to completely crush Yi Shiwen. There was a huge divide between those who had condensed a martial arts avatar and those who had not. It separated ordinary geniuses from the top group of people. But even so, the explosive arrow was easily caught by Yi Shiwen. If they were only surprised before, then now they were truly frightened. There was someone who could suppress an expert who had condensed a martial arts avatar at the same level? This was simply inconceivable. It was impossible for such a thing to exist. Has anyone told you that I have also condensed a martial arts avatar? Behind Yi Shiwen, there was also a huge virtual shadow that was slowly fusing with him. It was the martial arts avatar. He spat out several streams of qi, and the martial arts avatar behind him sped up and merged with him. Boom! 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 His body constantly exploded. It was the violent vibrations caused by waves of power merging with his body. The world changed color, and the surrounding laws began to change completely. The commotion caused by Yi Shiwen's martial arts avatar was even greater than when Diwu Qingxin had hurriedly merged with the martial arts avatar. His aura had also reached a whole new level of terror. The mountain-like aura swept in all directions. Many people swallowed their saliva. Was this really the level that a profound Death Realm intermediate stage could reach? Perhaps even some profound Death Realm advanced stage experts would not be this terrifying when they unleashed their full power. Even if one had condensed a martial arts avatar, it would not be this terrifying. Diwu Qingxin's situation was normal. Yi Shiwen's existence had completely exceeded the scope of their understanding. Eat my fist! Yi Shiwen suddenly blasted his fist out. Suddenly, the power of wind and the power of thunder began to explode chaotically in the entire sky. In an instant, the entire arena, and the space within a radius of several dozen miles, was completely engulfed in the endless power of wind and thunder. This was not a one-way attack, but a group attack. In this narrow arena, Yi Shiwen's power had reached its limit. The more his power of wind and thunder expanded, the thinner its power became. But in such a narrow space, its power was the strongest. It was almost as if he had unleashed it to its limit. Once he unleashed it, the entire void fell into Yi Shiwen's control. Boom! The fist tore everything apart and shattered. Thump! Diwu Qingxin's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly felt that things were not good. He had just resisted the invasion of the power of wind and thunder, and in the next instant, the earth-shattering fist had completely smashed down. The shock in his eyes could not be concealed. If there was originally only a small gap between him and Yi Shiwen, then after both of them merged with the martial arts avatar, this gap had also increased exponentially. Instead of shrinking, it had grown even larger. Bang! He took the full brunt of the punch, and the great Hua corona around him was completely shattered. He felt a sweetness in his throat, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. His body flew backwards like a cannonball. Chapter 1976. After fusing with the fist incarnation, the power of Yi Shiwen's punch was as terrifying as a nuclear explosion. But it did not create such a terrifying explosion. Instead, all the power was condensed into one point and blasted into Diwu Heartbreak. In just an instant, it broke through the protection of the Great Glory Corona and blasted into his body. There might have been some disparity between the two of them, but it was not to that extent. However, as they merged their martial arts clones, the disparity, which was not too obvious at first and might only be decided after several hundred rounds of battle, was instantly magnified to several times greater than before. Everyone was dumbfounded. Their mouths were wide open, and they did not know what to say. Although Yi Shiwen had the upper hand since the beginning, he had not completely overwhelmed Diwu Heartbreak. When Diwu Heartbreak and Yi Shiwen both condensed their martial incarnations, everyone thought that the battle would continue to escalate, and it would be difficult to determine the winner. These two peerless geniuses had actually condensed their martial incarnations, which was far beyond everyone's expectations. But in the end, after fusing with their martial incarnations, before the battle had even begun, Diwu Heartbreak had already been completely defeated by Yi Shiwen. Everyone was dumbfounded, completely dumbfounded. How could the gap become so big? Especially Yi Shiwen's punch. It looked very ordinary, but it had broken the Great Splendor Solar Corona technique and then sent Diwu Heartbreak flying like a cannonball, crashing into the boundary. Diwu Heartbreak had not used his full strength just now, so he could still resist. But now he was lying on the ground, unable to move. Although he was not dead, he was not far from it. That punch was too terrifying. Only some of the old monsters with extremely high cultivation could see some clues at this time. Yi Shiwen's punch only looked ordinary, but it did not mean that it was actually so. He had just gathered all his power into that punch, and not a single bit of it was wasted. This was the truly terrifying part. This meant that his control of power had reached a whole new level. He could actually control such a huge amount of power at will. Just thinking about it was shocking enough. If it were them, they would not be able to do this. This kind of technique had no direct relationship with the length of cultivation. It was not like cultivation. The longer a person cultivated, the more profound their cultivation would be. There was no way to be opportunistic, unless they consumed some priceless treasures of heaven and earth. Only then would it be possible. Even a peak early profound death realm expert would be blown apart by such a punch. I have only heard of martial incarnations, but I have never seen one. I did not expect it to have such power. This is truly an exciting battle. Both parties have displayed strength and combat intelligence that far surpasses that of an ordinary person from the very beginning. The youngsters these days are really getting more and more powerful. Furthermore, they have even formed martial avatars. It is likely that even late profound death stage experts will have difficulty dealing with them. It's a pity. As the saying goes, if there's a you, Then there's a Liang. This Diwu hard-hearted is already ridiculously strong. All the old guys in the same realm would be defeated by him. It's a pity that he met Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen is really a monster. Looking at his age, he's younger than Diwu hard-hearted by more than 1,000 years. My horizons have been completely broadened today. The battle between the two has really reached the level of skill nearing Tao. Yi Shiwen withdrew his martial incarnation. He only felt a flame burning within his body. This battle was also very satisfying for him. Although Diwu's sadness was not his match, he had forced him to use all his strength and even fused with his martial incarnation. It was only after the martial incarnations fused that the difference in their battle strength rapidly widened. From this point, it could be seen that Diwu Sadness's martial incarnation technique was obviously not as good as Yi Shiwen's myriad clones. Yi Shiwen's myriad clones could display 100% of its power, but Diwu Sadness could only display 70% of his power at most. This 30% difference did not seem like much, but for top experts who could decide victory or defeat in the blink of an eye, this kind of difference was almost like the distance between heaven and earth. But even so, Diwu Sadness's martial arts incarnation technique could not be said to be bad. Although there was a gap between it and Yi Shiwen's myriad body transformations, it could definitely be considered a top technique among others. After all, even old monsters who had cultivated for thousands or tens of thousands of years did not have a cultivation technique that could condense a martial incarnation like this. It was just a matter of who he was competing against. This battle was very satisfying. Diwu's sadness was able to force him to display his full strength, allowing him to completely measure where his bottom line was. At his level, it was not easy to fight to his heart's content like this. If his opponent was not too strong, he would not be his opponent, or too weak, he would not be his opponent. Only by truly knowing where one's bottom line was would one be able to fully display all of one's strength. This was something that could only be achieved through battle after battle. Many people grew up in a greenhouse. They had a body full of cultivation, but they were unable to display it to its fullest. He felt that he had reached a bottleneck. This battle had allowed him to completely break through to a whole new realm. This was not a bottleneck in cultivation, but a bottleneck in martial arts. After this battle, he had a feeling of enlightenment. This was not something that could be obtained by cultivating in seclusion. Originally, he had some misgivings and did not immediately condense a sword incarnation. But now it was time to condense a sword incarnation. Once he had condensed his sword principle incarnation, his strength would undergo another earth-shattering increase. So what if he was a late profound death stage expert? This was also the reason why he returned to Fallen Moon City. Going to the appointment with Diwu Sadness was only one of the reasons. More importantly, he needed some time to condense a sword incarnation. This required a safe place. However, with the vastness of the profound world battlefield, there was no place that could be considered safe except for the 4 cities of Fallen Moon City. Although it was only a month's time, it was enough. The condensation of his sword incarnation had already reached the final step. After a long time, it was finally about to be completed. Now, he only needed a quiet place to condense it in one go. At that time, even if a late profound death realm expert attacked him, he would not have anything to fear. I have benefited a lot from today's battle. If there is a chance in the future, I will look for Brother Diwu to exchange pointers. Diwu's sadness was lying on the ground, glancing at Yi Shiwen. He had lost today's battle. There was no excuse. He had lost in a fair and square battle. Moreover, it was not an ordinary defeat, but a crushing defeat. He was not the kind of person who could not afford to lose. Although he had never lost before, now that things had come to this, he was actually a little relieved. This was the first time he had lost, but it did not feel bad. In fact, because he had a goal, there was an indescribable feeling. Yi Shiwen did not stay for long. Soon, he began his closed-door training, ignoring the affairs of the world. The outside world, because of the battle between him and Diwu's sadness, had suddenly turned the sky upside down. The battle between him and Diwu's sadness could be said to be one climax after another. It was extremely exciting. Even many old monsters who had cultivated for many years had to admit that this battle was far beyond their imagination. No matter how you looked at it, it could be said to be one of the most exciting battles since the reopening of Fallen Moon City after thousands of years. Although there had been battles between other Heaven's Prides before, it was not as exciting as the one between Yi Shiwen and Diwu Sadness. First it was a battle, then it was a failure, then it was an appointment. In particular, these two people could be said to have made a name for themselves in the mysterious world. They were powerful existences with their own reputations. At their level of cultivation, even if they were still young, who would dare to look down on them? With such strength, if their age was ignored, they would be big shots in the mysterious world. Yi Shiwen had been in the limelight since his debut. Not everyone dared to challenge giants like the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace. Just like in his previous life on Earth, there was a terrorist organization that dared to challenge the 5 permanent members of the United Nations. Al-Qaeda only used a single incident of 9/11 to shake the entire world. Not to mention, Yi Shiwen had continuously offended several major forces. Moreover, after offending the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union, he had actually swaggered back to Fallen Moon City. He was simply arrogant. In particular, the experts of the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace were simply going crazy. They immediately spread the news of Yi Shiwen's appearance in Fallen Moon City. In a moment, the two giants, the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union, were suddenly operating. Originally, they had only stationed some eyes and ears and spies in Luo Yuqing. Most of the experts were not here. After all, every minute and second of these experts was precious. They were either cultivating in seclusion or exploring ruins. How could they have the time to specially station here to wait for Yi Shiwen? If Yi Shiwen did not return, wouldn't they have waited in vain? No one dared to make fun of the top experts like them. Moreover, given Yi Shiwen's strength, ordinary people would not be able to take him down. Only the real, monstrous giants of the two forces could take him down. Such existences naturally could not be on standby at all times. After all, Yi Shiwen could not reach such a level. After receiving Yi Shiwen's news, the first person to rush over was none other than Elder Xianting. Chapter 1977. Among the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union, the one who wanted Yi Shiwen to die the most was Elder Xianting. He had not taken Yi Shiwen seriously at all. Even though Yi Shiwen had a great battle record and had killed an initial profound death stage expert, Yi Shiwen was still someone that he could easily deal with. Even though he had displayed the strength of a mid-stage profound death realm expert, he was still unable to fight against him. Who knew that a person that he did not take seriously would actually give him such a heavy blow? He was not threatened, but he had almost died. If not for the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Palace arriving quickly, he would have really died in Yi Shiwen's hands. He could feel Yi Shiwen's killing intent. If there was no one around, he would definitely have died in Yi Shiwen's hands. How could he not hate a guy who had almost killed him? Over the past few months, he had been mobilizing the power of the Heaven Wasteland Palace to search for Yi Shiwen's whereabouts. It was just that during this period of time, Yi Shiwen's whereabouts were uncertain and he didn't have a fixed location at all. In addition, the profound world battlefield was just too big. Even such a colossus didn't know how many planes and spatial cracks there were. Unless the entire power of the Heaven Wasteland Palace was concentrated in the profound world battlefield, they would not be able to find them one by one. However, Yi Shiwen was not that important. It was not easy to hear news of Yi Shiwen now. He did not stop at all and only spent 3 days to return to Luoyua City. Soon, he had locked onto the place where Yi Shiwen had gone into seclusion. He was also very clear that Yi Shiwen could only stay for a month at most before leaving. He could still afford to wait for a month. Initially, he was shocked and angry. That array formation had left a deep impression on him. It had severely injured him in an instant and made him feel like he was about to be squeezed into minced meat. In fact, it was more or less the same. All the bones in his body were either crushed or broken. It could be said that his life was hanging by a thread. In order to treat him, he had spent almost all of his family's wealth on treatment. Otherwise, Given his injuries, he would not have been able to recover to his peak even if he had been saved. Furthermore, there would have been repercussions. As the saying went, after working hard for thousands of years, everything had returned to normal overnight. It was all thanks to Yi Shiwen. The only thing he was afraid of was Yi Shiwen's strange Jin method. However, he had also thought about it. It was obvious that the formation could not be used continuously. Otherwise, Yi Shiwen would not have only used it for an instant. Although the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall had arrived very quickly, there was still enough time for it to be activated. However, Yi Shiwen didn't kill him. Instead, he let him go. There was only one reason for this. That was, he couldn't hold on any longer. Afterwards, he also went to consult the formation masters of the Heaven Wasteland Hall and found out that such an earth-shattering formation would consume an unknown amount of Xian pills. According to this power, it could be estimated that it would consume at least a few million Xian pills. He was only at the intermediate profound death stage. Yet, he possessed millions of Xian pills. This was already extremely shocking. It was impossible for him to have millions more. He had made this judgment based on normal circumstances. However, he didn't know that Yi Shiwen had consumed tens of millions of Xian pills. Furthermore, he still had tens of millions of Xian pills on him. However, he didn't want to waste them on him. After receiving an affirmative answer, he was relieved. Yi Shiwen shouldn't have the ability to activate such a formation again. Moreover, he had prepared for a long time before activating it. Previously, he didn't know about it. Now, as long as he was careful, there shouldn't be too much of a problem. That being the case, Yi Shiwen had nothing to be afraid of since he didn't have such a method. Basically, there was only a dead end waiting for him. I want to see if you'll be lucky enough to escape this time. Elder Xianting's rapid arrival had also spread throughout Luoyua City. Anyone who was observant was basically paying attention to this matter. There was no need to mention the grudges between the two parties. Everyone was very clear about it. It was also because of this that everyone felt that there was no possibility of reconciliation between the two parties. The only thing worth watching was how the two parties would clash. Elder Xianting had been famous for many years. He was an expert in the advanced profound death realm and was invincible. Unless it was an expert at the peak of the profound death realm, he was basically invincible. Yi Shiwen wasn't simple either. His battle with Diwu Heartbreak had shown everyone his shocking strength. He had actually formed a martial path incarnation. Such strength and status were simply unimaginable. Being able to condense a martial path embodiment was a clear dividing line for many geniuses. Even in the nameless Tao College, not everyone was able to condense a martial path embodiment. Less than half of them were able to do so. It could be said that this ratio was already quite shocking. From this, it could be seen how rare it was to form a martial path incarnation. It was also because of this that when the two of them revealed their martial path incarnation level strength, it caused such a huge commotion. It was far more than the previous battles between the geniuses. Previously, Yi Shiwen had used a trick to trick Elder Xianting. Now, Elder Xianting would definitely be on guard. It wouldn't be so easy to make a move again. Therefore, such a collision was even more eye-catching. Furthermore, Elder Xianting was only the first to arrive. As time passed, more and more top experts would definitely arrive. As a famous colossus in the mysterious world, the Heaven Wasteland Palace's reputation was not undeserved. It was just that they were caught off guard by Yi Shiwen and did not have the time to gather their experts. Otherwise, not to mention 10 Yi Zaiwans, even 100 Yi Zaiwans would be annihilated in the face of such a terrifying power. The more they understood how terrifying the Heaven Wasteland Palace was. Furthermore, everyone here was a spy from the various major forces. They knew the inside story the best. There was already no suspense in such a collision. Even if Yi Shiwen formed a martial path incarnation, he wouldn't be a match for Elder Xianting, who was at the advanced profound death realm. Furthermore, there were still many experts from the Heaven Wasteland Palace. This time, even peak profound death realm experts would be involved. At that time, Yi Shiwen wouldn't be able to escape even if he had wings. If they were in his shoes, they wouldn't be able to escape either. However, it was also because of this that people found it even more strange. They all understood this very well. There was no reason why Yi Shiwen wouldn't have thought of this. In that case, why did he still dare to stay in Fallen Moon City? Where did his confidence come from? If it were anyone else, they would have already hidden far away and wouldn't dare to approach casually. What exactly was his confidence, and what was he relying on? During this period of time, everyone had been discussing this matter. Some people felt that he definitely had some life-saving means, while others felt that he might also have a colossus behind him. Therefore, he wasn't afraid of the joint attack of the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Alliance. During this period of time, Yi Shiwen's background had already been exposed due to the rage of the Heaven Wasteland Palace. He was actually a human from the ancient demon realm. However, he had been in the mysterious world for such a long time. Perhaps he had already relied on some colossus. After all, such a talented talent without any background would be coveted by everyone. As for the Yi family behind Yi Shiwen, it was automatically ignored. How could a force from the ancient desolate lands attract their attention? It didn't make a difference whether he had such a background or not. This kind of speculation could be said to be clamorous. Even the Divine Alliance and the Heaven Wasteland Palace were affected. They couldn't help but warn the other huge forces that had yet to get involved. Regardless of whether they were related to Yi Shiwen or not, no one was allowed to intervene and save Yi Shiwen. This person didn't understand the rules and broke them. He was a target that they had to kill. For a moment, the entire mysterious world was in chaos. What everyone couldn't understand was that even if he had a backer behind him, there was no need for him to appear so arrogantly in Fallen Moon City, right? It was as if he was afraid that the world wouldn't know that he was here. However, they didn't know that Yi Shiwen didn't have a backer. It was precisely because he didn't have a backer that he was even more helpless. He had no choice but to return to Fallen Moon City because no one could protect him in the mysterious battlefield. There wasn't even a safe place. So naturally, he couldn't condense a martial Dao incarnation. As for causing such a sensation, there was no other way. Anyway, as long as he entered Fallen Moon City, he would definitely attract the attention of the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Alliance. He wouldn't be able to escape. In that case, there was no difference whether he was high-profile or low-key. Hence, he didn't care at all. A few days later, more and more experts from the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Alliance arrived after receiving the news. They began to set up a large formation to encircle Yi Shiwen. Although they didn't dare to rush into Fallen Moon City, the outside of the city had already been completely occupied by them. Although a powerful figure like Elder Xian Ting had yet to arrive, in everyone's opinion, a powerful existence like Elder Xian Ting was enough to suppress everything. In the face of the Divine Alliance and the Heaven Wasteland Palace's encirclement, Yi Shiwen didn't make a move, as if he didn't care at all. The entire Fallen Moon City also fell into silence, like the calm before the storm. Everyone's eyes were on Yi Shiwen. When would he come out, and when would a battle break out between both sides? Such speculations were endless. However, they didn't know that Yi Shiwen was also in trouble at this time. Chapter 1978. The current Yi Shiwen had entered the most critical and tense stage of condensing the Sword Dao incarnation. He couldn't afford to be disturbed at this stage. If he were to be disturbed even a little, his comprehension would be interrupted. Then it would be difficult to reconnect it again. This was also why Yi Shiwen did not dare to find a random place to break through in the mysterious realm battlefield. He would be in danger if he met someone who did not know better. This was why he had no choice but to return to Moonfall City. According to his original estimation, he would be able to condense his sword principle incarnation in less than a day. At that time, he would not be in a hurry to leave. The people left behind by the Divine Alliance and the Heaven Desolate Palace would not be able to stop him. Even if a late-stage profound death stage expert attacked, he would not be afraid. After condensing his sword principle incarnation and combining the power of two martial path incarnations, his fighting strength would once again undergo a drastic change. He would even dare to fight a late-stage profound death expert. However, plans could not keep up with changes. He had originally estimated the progress of condensing his sword principle incarnation based on the progress of condensing his fist principle incarnation. In fact, his grasp of the sword principle was above that of his fist principle incarnation. In his opinion, it should be faster. However, this was not the case. He had underestimated the difficulty of condensing his sword principle incarnation. In fact, the difficulty of condensing his sword principle incarnation after containing his fist principle incarnation would increase exponentially due to the limited amount of energy that his body could contain. This round trip was much more difficult. Now, Yimo had also entered the most crucial stage of the fight for the physical body of the Lord of Darkness. He could not leave and had already entered seclusion. Otherwise, he would not have been in such a passive position if he had given Yi Shiwen a heads up. However, it was already too late for him to stop or give up now that things had developed to this stage. Furthermore, he could not give up now. He had only delayed for a few days, but a large number of experts from the Heaven Desolate Palace and the Divine Union would have rushed over. He did not even need to think to know that they had already set up an inescapable net outside the city. Although he did not know the exact situation outside, it should not be any better. If he could not condense his sword principle incarnation, it would be even more difficult for him to escape. On the contrary, if he could form a sword Dao avatar and make a breakthrough on his own, he would be able to fight against two late profound death stage experts. It would naturally be much easier for him to escape. Thinking of this, he became even more anxious, but he could only cultivate diligently. A large number of Xian cores were incessantly burned and transformed into Lingqi, which was instilled into the mysterious space. Yi Shiwen's understanding of the martial arts incarnation had reached a new level. In the blink of an eye, another 3 days had passed. During these 3 days, besides the mysterious Thunder Elder, another big shot had arrived. However, it was a top expert of the Divine Union. He was a top-notch expert of the Stone Golem race. It was said that this race lived in the rock plane. They were born with incomparably tyrannical bodies, as tough as diamond. Ordinary people couldn't even break through their bodies. As soon as this Stoneman Elder arrived at Fallen Moon City, Elder Xianting personally went to pay a visit. Naturally, the relationship between the two parties was not harmonious. On the contrary, it was rather tense. They belonged to the Desolate Heaven Palace and the Divine Union respectively, so their relationship naturally wasn't good. The Desolate Heaven Palace had existed for countless years and had established itself in the mysterious world. It could be said to be an old powerhouse. On the other hand, the Divine Union had only risen in the past few thousand years. In terms of foundation, there was still a gap between them and these great sections. Their greatest trump card was the leader of the Divine Union, who was now known as the #1 person in the mysterious world and the #1 person in the myth realm. The rise of the Divine Union was inevitably accompanied by a war with these great sections. Over the past few thousand years, both sides had suffered countless casualties. Only with the blood of countless experts laying the foundation did they reluctantly accept the rise of the Divine Union. Even the mysterious Thunder Elder and this Stoneman Elder had fought a few times. At their level, those who fought were basically people from the same circle. Both of them were prideful people. Even if they joined forces to deal with a common enemy, there wouldn't be any good cooperation. However, the mysterious Thunder Elder hated Yi Shiwen to the core. He couldn't wait to tear Yi Shiwen into pieces. This kind of hatred even surpassed his self-esteem. Compared to all kinds of hatred, what was there to humble himself? The Stoneman Elder was rather surprised by the visit of the mysterious Thunder Elder. "You are actually willing to humble yourself to visit me. TSK. It seems like the rumor that you were seriously injured by this kid wasn't false." The Stoneman Elder couldn't help but burst into laughter after a brief moment of astonishment. He seemed rather pleased with himself. The mysterious Thunder Elder's face turned green and white. He couldn't wait to leave. If he didn't have a favor to ask, how could he have humbly come to ask for someone's help? This was simply a great humiliation. However, he also knew that if he were in Yi Shiwen's shoes, he wouldn't be able to avoid ridiculing him. Don't underestimate him. This kid is as treacherous as a fox and full of tricks. In terms of strength, he isn't a match for me at all. However, he used a crafty plot. I was also caught off guard and was seriously injured by him. the mysterious Thunder Elder said as he forcibly calmed the anger in his heart. If he fell out with this guy now and allowed Yi Shiwen to escape, the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. In order to capture Yi Shiwen personally and tear him into pieces, there was nothing he couldn't let go of. Crafty plot. The Stoneman Elder laughed heartily and said, "Use whatever crafty plot you have. Those crafty plots are useless against me. I heard that his physical body is pretty good and seems to have a special bloodline within the human race. However, it doesn't matter. Since he dared to say that his physical body is powerful in front of me, I will break his bones one by one and see how amazing the physical body that he is so proud of is." The Stoneman Elder did not take the mysterious Thunder Elder's warning to heart. Just like the mysterious Thunder Elder, he was filled with confidence in his own strength. The gap between the intermediate and advanced profound death stage was simply too great. The further one advanced, the more difficult it was to ascend to the heavens. In other words, the gap between each realm was like the difference between heaven and earth. How could it be easy to make up for this gap? In that case, I won't say anything more. Take care of yourself. However, Yi Shiwen is someone that our Heaven Desolate Palace wants. The mysterious Thunder Elder could not help but speak angrily when he saw that Yi Shiwen did not seem to care at all. In any case, the one who would suffer would be Yi Shiwen and not him. There was no need for him to care so much. Moreover, he could not wait for Yi Shiwen to suffer at Yi Shiwen's hands. This was a very strange mentality. He had suffered a huge loss at Yi Shiwen's hands, but he hoped that others would also suffer a huge loss. This way, no one would say that he had suffered a huge loss at Yi Shiwen's hands. It was not that he was not strong enough, but Yi Shiwen was simply too strong. Therefore, there was nothing he could do about his failure. It was precisely because of this mentality that he did not continue speaking. Furthermore, deep down, he did not feel that Yi Shiwen was any threat. How could Yi Shiwen turn the tables against two advanced profound death stage experts? That won't do. That won't do. Our leader has personally ordered us to capture this brat. You know our leader's personality. How could we not do our best to help him capture the person he wants? The Stone Golem Elder said faintly, directly rejecting Elder Xian Ting's words. The decree of your divine union leader cannot be disobeyed. Do you think that our Heaven Desolate Palace can bully you at will? The mysterious Thunder Elder could not help but say angrily. He realized that ever since he had taken the initiative to put down his arrogance, everything seemed to have fallen into a passive state. This uncouth old man had actually started to put on airs. At the thought of this, he could not help but grit his teeth in hatred. I don't care what the people of the Heaven Desolate Palace plan to do. However, we want this kid's head. How many years has it been since anyone has dared to provoke the dignity of the divine union? Now that I finally have something to do, I feel like my bones are about to loosen. The Stone Man Elder said with a sinister smile. It was as if Yi Shiwen was no match for him and was merely a toy that he could use to relax his muscles. The people of the divine union needed to use Yi Shiwen's head to deter even more people who had ill intentions and tried to provoke the divine union. As for what the people of the Heaven Desolate Palace were thinking, it had nothing to do with them. They could just let them be. In any case, ever since the divine union had risen, they had often competed with these colossi. Suddenly, an incomparably majestic figure flashed in his mind. He didn't know why, but he suddenly overlapped Yi Shiwen's name with that incomparably majestic figure. He suddenly felt that both of them were peerless geniuses who had condensed martial path incarnations. They were both young, but did not have any background. Furthermore, they had dared to challenge the authority of veteran powerhouses and simply looked down on a colossus like the Heaven Desolate Palace. He had defeated countless experts and slowly built up his supreme status and power in the divine union that no one dared to provoke. However, he immediately discarded this absurd thought. This kid was just courting death. How could he be compared to their great leader? He had really lost his mind. He could not possibly have the opportunity to grow to that level because today he would break all the bones in his body and let him die while wailing in pain. In that case, let's rely on our own means. The mysterious Thunder Elder snorted angrily and turned to leave. Tisk, as timid as a mouse. A disdainful look appeared on the stone man elder's stone-like face. Chapter 1979. Following the arrival of the stone man elder, the people of the Divine Union finally gathered. Although the Divine Union and Yi Shiwen had a deep hatred for each other compared to the Heaven Wasteland Hall, they could only watch helplessly as the Heaven Wasteland Hall took action against Yi Shiwen because more than half of their experts had been taken away by the Divine Union leader. Although Yi Shiwen's strength was insignificant in their eyes, he had some secrets that even the Divine Union leader was interested in. There were some inheritances and techniques that even the Divine Union leader couldn't turn a blind eye to. Now, they could finally take Yi Shiwen down directly. This flea that was always jumping around in front of them was finally going to be crushed to death. Although the other experts had yet to arrive at this time, it was enough for the people of the two camps. With Elder Xianting and Elder Stoneman as the leaders, it was more than enough to capture Yi Shiwen. Following the arrival of these two experts, there was a huge commotion in Luoyue City. Following the arrival of these two experts, Yi Shiwen, who had already attracted a lot of attention, suddenly became a whole level higher. These two experts were well-known existences even in the entire mysterious world. Now that they were going to join forces to capture a junior, this was big news to many people who didn't know about it. A junior like Yi Shiwen wasn't enough to arouse their attention, but the appearance of these two veteran powerhouses was the real reason why they paid attention to him. After inquiring about the reason, Yi Shiwen's name truly entered into the cognition of those people for the first time. This time, Yi Shiwen definitely won't be able to escape. He was lucky to escape last time, but he actually dared to come here again. He's simply courting death. However, Yi Shiwen isn't a fool. Since he dared to come here, he must have something to rely on. It's useless even if he has something to rely on, given his profound Death Realm strength. Even if he fused with the Martial Path embodiment, he won't be able to escape from the joint pursuit of Elder Xianting and the Stone Man Elder. It's a pity that his quota will definitely fall into the hands of one of these two forces. Every quota is so precious. Many people couldn't help but sigh. They weren't sighing because Yi Shiwen was about to die, but because of the quota in his hands. With the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union taking action, there was no room for them to intervene. Moreover, those who could sit on an equal footing with these two forces, including the Cloud City, did not have such a huge enmity with Yi Shiwen. It was not worthwhile to fight with these two forces to the death just for a quota. As for Yi Shiwen, no one believed that he could escape from the hands of these two powerful experts. Moreover, there were many other profound death stage experts who had joined hands to set up an inescapable net. It was basically impossible for him to escape. After the negotiation between the two sides, or perhaps it could be said that the coordination was fruitless, each side would guard one side and see which side Yi Shiwen would break out from. Another 3 days passed amidst the tense wait. Everyone was starting to lose their patience. Some people even suspected that Yi Shiwen had quietly left. Suddenly, a shocking sword chi erupted from Moonfall City. It soared into the sky and turned into a huge sword. It appeared in the sky and suppressed everything in all directions. What's that sword chi? What a powerful sword chi. Someone has made a breakthrough. However, when did such a powerful sword cultivator appear in the city? I didn't know about it at all. Who is it? This sword chi is unusual. Go and find out. Go and find out immediately. Could it be that someone from the sword world has appeared? Or has Jian Wuchen appeared in Moonfall City? The sword chi swept up, but it only flashed for a moment before disappearing without a trace. It was as if it had been suppressed by a force. Many people in the city were shocked. The power of this sword light was definitely extraordinary. The sky was shaking, and the countless laws in the surroundings were shattered by the laws of the way of the sword. Everywhere that the shocking sword chi passed seemed to have turned into a country of sword principle. It could be said that the sword chi was shocking. Although there were countless experts in Moonfall City, it was also because of this that most people kept a low profile. They did not dare to speak unless they had reached the profound death stage. Moreover, the power contained in that sword chi was enough to make many people feel fearful. Just when everyone was still wondering who this person was, a figure suddenly stepped out from the place where the sword chi was. He stepped on the sword light and directly turned into a sword light, breaking out of the encirclement. Everyone was startled for a moment, but everyone quickly reacted. That was Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen has come out. It's him. It's really him. Quick chase after him. I want to see what will happen today. Will Yi Shiwen be able to escape? As everyone chased after him, their divine senses swept out and firmly locked onto Yi Shiwen. At this moment, there were hundreds of divine senses chasing after Yi Shiwen. All of them were profound death stage experts. Originally, there were not so many profound death stage experts in the city. Because of Yi Shiwen, there were many experts who had personally rushed over from faraway places. Although they were stunned, they quickly reacted. After all, they had waited for such a long time. Everyone immediately chased after him. Swoosh! 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 In an instant, countless figures flew across the sky above the city. It was a spectacular sight. Many people did not even restrain their powerful auras, causing many people in the city to tremble. Many people would never have imagined that so many profound death stage existences would actually gather in the entire fallen moon city without a sound. This was simply frightening. So many profound death stage experts. If they weren't in the profound world battlefield, if they weren't in fallen moon city, any place in the profound world would be enough to cause a huge uproar. Even after hundreds or thousands of years, they would still become legends. If they were in another small world, any one of them would be able to suppress a small world and become a godlike existence. Yi Shiwen's figure was incomparably fast, catching everyone off guard. In the blink of an eye, he had already flown thousands of miles away, directly flying out of the range of Moonfall City's defenses. In the blink of an eye, Yi Shiwen directly opened his hands and tore out endless golden light. An incomparably huge spatial crack was torn open by him. He was about to tear open the space and escape. Suddenly, a powerful shock wave spread from afar. The air was like the surface of boiling water, violently fluctuating. Boom! It completely suppressed the space that was about to be torn apart. Yi Shiwen, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Along with this shout, a huge thunderbolt fiercely struck down towards Yi Shiwen like a thunderbolt from the clear sky. Crash! A violent explosion was heard. An incomparably huge crack was torn open in the void by this huge thunderbolt. It was a ghastly and extremely shocking sight. This wasn't the crack that Yi Shiwen had just torn open, which had a spatial positioning function. This was a genuine spatial crack. Behind this crack was a spatial turbulence. Behind that thunderbolt was an angry figure. Yi Shiwen fixed his eyes on it. Who else could it be but the mysterious Thunder Elder? You've finally come out after hiding for so long. The mysterious Thunder Elder looked at Yi Shiwen coldly. His expression was extremely cold, as if he wanted to tear Yi Shiwen into pieces. If you have any last words, say them now. You won't be able to escape today, even if you grow wings. Yi Shiwen, I want to see what kind of thing you are. How dare you go against the Divine Union? I want to smash all the bones in your body and see what you're made of. Suddenly, a loud shout was heard. The sky started to fluctuate once again, and a crack was torn open. Another group of martialists traversed the vast sky and arrived from another part of the void. There were about a dozen of these martialists, and their auras were monstrous. Even the weakest among them were top-notch experts at the Profound Life Realm. The 20 or so people leading them were all Profound Death Realm experts. There were even a few of them with powerful auras that were at the peak of the intermediate Profound Death Realm. Among these people, Yi Shiwen had a whole new level of respect for a huge stone man. His entire body seemed as if it was made of stones. His eyes were filled with a threatening cold aura. His body's aura was so terrifying and powerful that even the combined aura of many experts behind him couldn't compare to him. Yi Shiwen knew that this was the mysterious Thunder Elder, who had caused an uproar during this period of time. During this period of time, the mysterious Thunder Elder and the mysterious Thunder Elder had caused an uproar in the city. Many people couldn't wait to turn the world upside down. Hence, The news of the two of them joining hands to surround and capture Yi Shiwen had been hyped up by even more people. This had been the hottest topic in Luoyua City over the past few days. Even though he had been in closed-door cultivation, it was impossible for him not to have heard about it. In fact, unless it was absolutely safe, Yi Shiwen wouldn't be able to completely immerse himself in closed-door cultivation. Luoyua City was the territory of the nameless Dao College, and in theory, there shouldn't be any small fry who would dare to provoke the dignity of Luoyua City. However, this wasn't absolute. If someone was blind and really wanted to cause trouble for him, he would be caught unprepared if he completely immersed himself in closed-door cultivation. Hence, he still needed to be vigilant. His spirit consciousness had already completely covered the surrounding area. Although he hadn't come out of his closed-door cultivation, he had already understood the news clearly. Chapter 1980. The people from the Divine Union have also arrived. It seems like they have sent out many experts. With so many experts surrounding him, I'm afraid that Yi Shiwen won't be able to escape. So what a pity. It's said that such a peerless genius is going to fall just like that after entering the mysterious world not long ago. He hasn't even had the chance to shine. Everyone sighed. They had also caught up, but they could only stop far away when they saw that both sides had already surrounded Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen keenly discovered that although these two groups of people seemed to have surrounded him from the front and back, they had actually started to become hostile. Although this trend was not too obvious, it was still seen by Yi Shiwen. Is it because they want to fight for their own heads? Yi Shiwen said with a cold smile. Yi Shiwen, don't even think about escaping today. You'd better surrender obediently. Suddenly, a peaked Divine Union profound Death Realm expert stood up and pointed at Yi Shiwen. As for Elder Xinting and the Stone Man Elder, they didn't say anything. They seemed to be resting with their eyes closed. However, Yi Shiwen could clearly sense that their spirit senses were all concentrated on Yi Shiwen's body. They hadn't stopped for even a moment. If he made any strange movements, he would probably attract a thunderous attack from these two peerless powerhouses. Escape? I didn't say that I was going to escape today. A set of noble robes faintly appeared on Yi Shiwen's body. It was khaki, which represented extreme nobility. A pair of flaming cloud boots appeared under his feet, bursting like a ball of raging flames. On top of his head, an azure Taoist crown emitted a series of water blue waves, faintly forming a series of water blue ripples, protecting him within. In his hand, a dazzling golden longsword appeared. It was an extremely terrifying sight. His body emitted a shocking, murderous intent. At this point, he didn't seem to have any intention of hiding. Yi Shiwen hadn't spent these 10 days in vain. In addition to desperately condensing the sword embodiment, he had been constantly multitasking to refine the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram. Back then, he had only refined the earth robe from the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram. After such a long time, the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram had gradually been perfected by him. He had refined the Waterlord's crown, the Zhurong boots, and the metal Emperor's sword one after another. Other than the wood Emperor's belt, the rest of the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram had been refined to its limit. Back then, the power of the 5 elements was very rare to him. But now that the Demon Lord's treasury had fallen into his hands, this was no longer a luxury for him. He continued to work on the 5-element universe diagram, but his progress was not fast. If it was not for the fact that he had been forced to such an extent where he might have to face the surprise attack of 2 late profound death stage experts at the same time, he would not have wanted to speed up the refinement of the 5 elements universe diagram. Although the wood Emperor's belt had yet to be refined, the wood attribute of the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram had already been completely replenished. Although it had yet to reach its limit, it was not far from it. If he could completely refine the wood Emperor's belt, according to the letter left behind by the 5 elements supreme, he would have the protection of 5 emperors, making him impenetrable. It was extremely powerful. He could directly use the power of the 5 elements as his attack method. Any attack from the power of the 5 elements was nothing in the face of the protection of 5 emperors. Unless he used the yin-yang life and death diagram in his hand to directly attack with the yin-yang qi, it would be impossible to break through the protection of 5 emperors. In fact, if he could refine the power of the 5 elements into one, he could even invite the descent of the 5 ancient emperors to wipe out all demons and monsters. However, he did not know how long he would have to cultivate to reach that stage. For others, not being able to find a way to practice was the most difficult thing. However, for Yi Shiwen, it wasn't that he lacked a way to practice. On the contrary, there were too many ways to practice, and the methods were too complicated. This was the biggest problem he had to face now. The so-called all-encompassing also meant that he was loose in everything. Any of the cultivation methods that he knew could be said to be earth-shattering when cultivated to the extreme. Just the cultivation method of 5 emperors had once produced a peerless existence like the 5 elements supreme. It wasn't difficult for Yi Shiwen to judge from the information and insights recorded in the letter that this 5 elements supreme was at least a legendary figure. Although this 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram was refined by him, but this technique wasn't his own. Instead, it was a secret technique that had been passed down from ancient times. Perhaps it was a powerful technique of the same level as the ancient god scriptures. Not to mention the devil wings, phoenix regeneration technique, overturning the sky seal, etc., which could be said to be unparalleled in the world when cultivated to the extreme. Yi Shiwen had always been inclined to use the yin-yang life and death diagram to attack. It was more powerful. His main direction of refining and comprehending was also the yin-yang life and death diagram. However, during this period of time, he understood that although the yin-yang life and death diagram was of a higher level, the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram was more suitable for his current stage. After all, the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram had peerless power. It also had a complete cultivation and refining method. The difficulty of cultivating the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram to the extreme was much lower than the yin-yang life and death diagram. Just like the emergence immortal exterminating saber. In the absence of a cultivation method, even with the help of the mysterious space, Yi Shiwen still had to explore for hundreds of years to barely explore the refining method of the emergence immortal exterminating saber. This was extremely difficult. Ordinary martial arts, or even ordinary cultivation methods, with the mystical power of the mysterious space, it would only take a moment for it to completely deduce them, and even comprehending them would only take a moment. However, each of these cultivation methods was more powerful than the last, and each one was more overbearing than the last. If he wanted to deduce them, the difficulty of each of them would also increase exponentially. If he wanted to refine them all like he did before, then even if the mysterious space could deduce them, his profound core would not be enough to deduce them. Just in order to deduce and refine the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram to this extent, he had already digested tens of millions of Qian cores out of his 15 million. It was almost comparable to the price of using the Ghost Heartfire Great Array. This time, the difficulty of condensing the sword principal incarnation was far beyond his imagination. He had consumed 5 million Qian cores in one go. Only then did he manage to condense the sword principal incarnation. In other words, he had suddenly become a pauper. And all of this was forced by the people in front of him. The 2 pursuit and interception had consumed a total of 20 million Qian cores. It was said that many top mysterious realm experts of the Divine Union had died in pursuit of him, who knew that he had also paid a high price. What is that? Such a powerful aura. It makes people feel as if they are facing an emperor of the world. Their bodies involuntarily produce a feeling of worship. Some people involuntarily wanted to worship, but they were stopped by their lofty and unyielding character. After cultivating to such a level, even a god was not worthy of them kneeling down. No one would willingly kneel down unless they were forced to. Yi Shiwen was standing in the void. His 4 colors were flashing dazzlingly. It was as if the emperor of the world had descended to this world. Every movement of his hands and feet contained great power. It was as if all the luck of the world had been added to his body. His words were like golden words and jade words. Wherever he pointed was the direction of the world. What was a king? In the world of mortals, it was a supreme existence. This kind of person was called the Son of Heaven. He He was born with countless luck and was a true heaven's pride. As for the 5 emperors, they were the kings of the world, the supreme kings. Now, the luck of the 5 emperors had been added to Yi Shiwen's body, which had produced such a terrifying effect. Although his cultivation was still far from the level of the 5 emperors, it was still shocking enough. Yi Shiwen slowly opened his eyes. A tyrannical light flickered in his eyes. His eyes were a mass of blood red, like a ferocious beast. The bloodline of the star beast had been mobilized by him. The power of the stars in the world had faintly started to gather towards him. The pressure of an ancient ferocious beast was faintly released. Everyone thinks that I am easy to bully. In that case, I will turn the world upside down today. You want to kill me? Let's see if you can afford to. Yi Shiwen's voice was ice cold, as if it had come from hell. Following his words, everyone seemed to be able to feel a boundless bloody aura spreading out. Kid, you are too arrogant. The Divine Union's intermediate profound death realm expert was frightened by Yi Shiwen's aura. He suddenly came to his senses. He was ashamed and angry at the same time. He felt that being frightened by Yi Shiwen was a great humiliation. Boom! The long sword in his hand shot out. The sword light illuminated half the sky. The other half was instantly shattered, forming a world that crushed towards Yi Shiwen. Clang! The sword light landed fiercely 3 feet in front of Yi Shiwen. However, it was unable to get any closer. The world 3 feet away from Yi Shiwen's body had completely shattered, revealing countless primal chaos. One could imagine how powerful this sword was. As they had already left the boundaries of Luoyi West City, the space here had not been reinforced. The attack of an intermediate profound death realm expert was enough to destroy the world. How is this possible? The intermediate profound death realm expert was completely stunned. He could not believe that the long sword in his hand had actually been blocked by Yi Shiwen. Moreover, Yi Shiwen had not even moved. His longsword was actually stuck 3 feet in front of Yi Shiwen. It had been blocked by a ball of soft, water blue light. Shui Juanguan had revealed his malevolence. It wasn't just the intermediate stage profound death realm expert. Everyone was shocked. This was especially true for those experts who had followed behind Yi Shiwen. Many of them had guessed how Yi Shiwen had defeated Diwu Xian. They had guessed that Yi Shiwen's strength far exceeded that of an ordinary peak intermediate stage profound death realm expert. However, Yi Shiwen was able to completely block Diwu Xian's attack without even moving. Other than the world collapsing, the vast and boundless sky was completely silent. Chapter 1981. Everyone was shocked by this shocking scene. Many people could not help but feel their hair stand on end. Such a sword attack had no effect. They could not help but tremble in fear. Now, Yi Shiwen was not their enemy. But what if one day, Yi Shiwen became their enemy? What could they do? How could they break through such a shocking defense? A defense that even a peak profound death realm expert could not break through, and Yi Shiwen did not even move. How strong was he? Among the crowd, Diwu Shang looked at Yi Shiwen, who was like an emperor descending from the sky. His heart was incomparably complicated, and he did not know what to say. That aura had even surpassed that of a deity. It was as if the legendary emperor who dominated the heavens and reigned over the world had been resurrected. Especially Shui Juanguan's defense, it gave him a huge shock. He once thought that even if his great splendor solar corona wasn't number 1 in terms of defense, it would still be at the top. But now, when he compared it to Shui Juanguan's defense, he discovered that he wasn't considered much at all. Yi Shiwen had such a powerful posture. Compared to the time when he had fought with him 10 days ago, Yi Shiwen's strength was not just a little bit stronger. Even if he had fused with his archery incarnation, he would not be able to do anything to Yi Shiwen, who was in the state of 5 emperors. This was the cruelest truth. 10 days ago, when Yi Shiwen had fought him, he had not even used his full strength. He had not even used his full strength. An unknown anger was burning in Diwu Shang's heart, but he did not know who to blame. He had just used a large amount of heavenly treasures to heal his injuries, and then he saw this scene. He He would rather believe that Yi Shiwen did not have such strength 10 days ago than believe that Yi Shiwen had improved in these 10 days. When martial artists fought, when their martial power was similar, it depended on who had the upper hand. He could faintly feel that Yi Shiwen's martial power did not seem to have improved much. But this mighty aura told him that Yi Shiwen's strength had increased by more than a little. Could he really improve to such an extent in 10 days? He didn't want to believe it, but he could only believe that Yi Shiwen didn't use his full strength at all. Indeed, Yi Shiwen always had the upper hand in the entire battle. The time he had the upper hand was very short, and he was almost unable to threaten Yi Shiwen. On the other hand, Yi Shiwen could constantly threaten him. The whole situation seemed to be under his control. This unwillingness was burning in his heart, but he also knew that he couldn't blame Yi Shiwen. After all, how could the weak blame the strong for not using their full strength when dealing with them? If he had used his full strength, he would probably have been beaten to the ground in a single move. He wouldn't have had the time to summon his martial arts incarnation. Such a scene would probably be even more humiliating and unacceptable than the scene 10 days ago. Although he knew this was the case, he still couldn't accept it when he really needed to think about it. To think that he had underestimated the heroes of the world. In the end, he had been defeated before he could even force him to use his full strength. In the world, who else could force him to use his full strength in the same realm? In his mind, a few extremely powerful figures flashed. Even with his pride, he faintly felt that he was no match for these powerful existences. Perhaps Yi Shiwen could compete with these people. Is that all? Yi Shiwen slowly opened his eyes. It was as if a king of the world was looking at a beggar. He was looking at him with contempt. He didn't put him in his eyes at all. Damn it, how dare you look down on me? The foreign race expert's face suddenly became abnormally ugly, and he was ashamed and angry at the same time. He just didn't believe it. He hadn't seen Yi Shiwen's strength with his own eyes. Even if he heard that Yi Shiwen had condensed his martial arts incarnation, he still felt that he could protect himself. But when he made a move, he found that he was ridiculously wrong. But after being really looked down upon by Yi Shiwen, he was extremely angry. Clang! The golden gung sword in Yi Shiwen's hand instantly emitted an earth-shattering radiance. In an instant, it was like the sun covering everything. Everyone was instantly blinded and could only use their divine senses to observe. However, in an instant, Yi Shiwen finally moved. He simply slashed out with lightning speed, and the Gung Jin sword chi spurted out, cutting the sky into two halves. The foreign race expert finally reacted, and in a panic, he used his long sword to block. However, the moment his weapon came into contact with the golden Gung sword chi, it was instantly sliced into pieces. Then his entire head was sent flying on the spot. Poochie! Blood splattered out. Even in death, the expert's eyes were filled with disbelief. Where was the strength of the profound death stage, intermediate stage? Where was the strength of the profound death stage, intermediate stage, intermediate stage, intermediate stage? Wasn't this a joke? As a peak profound death stage, intermediate stage expert, he couldn't even block a single sword. Even if he had fused with his martial arts incarnation, it shouldn't be this terrifying. How was this possible? These words were hidden in his throat, and he didn't have the time to say them in the end. Today, I'll use your head as a sacrifice. Blood is destined to flow like a river. Yi Shiwen sighed softly. No one knew what he was sighing about. Perhaps it was because these people's lives were about to end? How dare you? The Stone Man Elder was about to go crazy. Yi Shiwen had actually attacked right under his nose. Furthermore, he had effortlessly killed a peak profound death stage, intermediate stage expert. This was simply a slap to his face. Damn little bastard, I'll definitely break all the bones in your body one by one. He roared, and his voice formed a powerful sound wave that swept out in circles, just like a real tsunami. He immediately let out a furious roar, and a huge stone hand instantly shot out. It expanded with the wind and directly grabbed at Yi Shiwen. Although Yi Shiwen's golden gung sword chi had displayed astonishing power, he didn't care at all. His physical body wasn't weak either. Clang! Bang! Yi Shiwen's gung jin sword chi swept up and swept onto the big hand of this stone elder. Unexpectedly, there was a sound of gold and iron colliding with each other. After a burst of sparks, that huge force actually directly crushed down on the stone elder again. Boom! The place where Yi Shiwen was had been completely destroyed. That grab caused the entire world to shake, as if there was a violent earthquake. The furious Stone Man Elder's attack had already surpassed the profound death stage intermediate stage. However, he wasn't able to catch Yi Shiwen. When Yi Shiwen reappeared, no one realized when he had appeared among the group of Divine Union experts. When they discovered him, they were instantly shocked and furious. They actually didn't realize when Yi Shiwen had gotten close to them. Yi Shiwen's expression was extremely cold, as if he was looking at a group of dead people. Swish! His gung metal sword flew up, and a foreign race expert who couldn't dodge in time was directly chopped into two halves by his sword. This was an expert at the peak of the profound life realm. In his original world, he was also a big shot who could shake the world with a stomp of his foot. However, he had died in Yi Shiwen's hands in such a worthless manner. In fact, no one might even remember his name, because he was just one of the many experts who had died in Yi Shiwen's hands. Yi Shiwen stepped on a golden wave and shuttled through these experts. The golden gung sword was like the Grim Reaper's scythe, constantly reaping the lives of these experts. Usually, they were the ones who reaped the lives of others. They had never imagined that one day, their lives would also be reaped like weeds. These people frantically launched all sorts of attacks, which turned into mighty martial arts torrents that bombarded Yi Shiwen's body. However, they were completely unable to do anything to Yi Shiwen. This was because most of their martial arts contained the power of the five elements. As long as they contained the power of the five elements, how could they do anything to Yi Shiwen, who is currently supported by the five emperors? Their attacks would only become his greatest nourishment. All of them were absorbed by him, allowing his five emperors to become even more powerful. These people's attacks didn't hurt him at all. They were completely unable to do anything to Yi Shiwen. Behind him, the Stone Man Elder was chasing him relentlessly, earth-shattering and sky-shocking. Die! He roared and threw a punch. Endless stone chi scattered in all directions, turning the sky and earth into a world of rocks. In this world, he was the true ruler. Yi Shiwen didn't want to get entangled with him. Instead, he continued to slaughter the ordinary experts of the Divine Union. Yes, even those peak intermediate stage profound death realm experts could only be considered ordinary in his eyes. They couldn't even withstand a single sword strike from him. His current state had simply soared to an earth-shattering level. A single strike of his sword could destroy a magic tool in the air. The tyrant golden body and the power of the star beast bloodline had all been mobilized, converging into an extremely frightening power. Everyone could only see the usually arrogant Divine Union experts falling from the sky like dumplings. Blood splattered everywhere, and it seemed like a rain of blood had fallen from the sky. The entire scene looked extremely ferocious. Everyone was stunned. They couldn't believe it, and neither were they willing to believe it. How could this be? Even the boldest person among them had never thought that things would turn out this way. It wasn't that Yi Shiwen had been beaten to the point where he couldn't retaliate. Instead, it was that Yi Shiwen had slaughtered these insufferably arrogant people who wanted to skin Yi Shiwen like dumplings falling from the sky. The experts of the Heaven Wasteland Palace were especially terrified. Chapter 1982. It wasn't that they hadn't seen experts before, but they had never seen such a ferocious existence. Killing Profound Life Realm and Profound Silk Realm experts was as easy as chopping vegetables. This was especially true for the powerful experts of the major forces. Being mobilized to besiege a single person was nothing new to them. It was just that in the past, it was usually the strongest expert who charged at the front. Generally, the strongest expert was enough to crush the provocateurs. Coupled with their help, it was enough to annihilate any provocateurs. However, this rule didn't apply to Yi Shiwen because the Stone Man Elder couldn't even catch up to Yi Shiwen's speed. Yi Shiwen's speed had increased after the 5 emperors were added to his body. The Zhu Rong boots had allowed his explosive power to increase by leaps and bounds. The instantaneous explosive speed of his wind and lightning wings was already shockingly fast. With the addition of the Zhurong boots, his speed had already reached a level that even a late profound death stage expert would not be able to deal with. Don't even think of escaping today. Heaven Wasteland Palace, Divine Union, all of you must die. Yi Shiwen shouted, and a sword radiance swept out from the gold emperor's sword. The sword essence was like a river flowing backwards, sweeping out in an instant. A few Divine Union experts who couldn't dodge in time were swept by the sword. In an instant, various explosions were heard, and countless brilliant lights exploded in the sky. The defensive magic tools on their bodies exploded in an instant. They had been slashed by the gold emperor's sword. Even their bodies exploded in an instant. Yi Shiwen's gold emperor's sword had been refined to the extreme. Among the 5 elements, the metal attribute belonged to the offensive category and was invincible. The sword radiance that Yi Shiwen casually slashed out was interwoven with the supreme truth of sword principles. In the distance, the sword cultivators who were cultivating couldn't help but feel that it was very beneficial to see this scene. They felt that the supreme truth was nothing more than this. He used the sword essence of a king as the foundation and the gold emperor's sword as the form. The sword essence that swept out was simply invincible. In addition, after condensing the sword principle incarnation, his sword principle cultivation had improved greatly and his sword essence was extremely sharp. Damned human, stop and fight me fair and square, if you have the ability. The stone golem elder roared continuously. He was about to go mad with anger. He never thought that the situation would turn out like this. Although Yi Shiwen didn't seem to be his opponent, but because of his speed, he couldn't do anything to him. Among all the martial arts in the world, only speed was unbeatable and indestructible. He naturally walked the path of invincibility, but he never thought that someone could use the path of speed to such an extent. Moreover, it was someone whose realm was even lower than his. It made him very dissatisfied. In all fairness, Yi Shiwen's speed wasn't considered slow. After all, a late-stage profound death stage expert's speed wouldn't be too bad. However, Yi Shiwen's speed was simply too fast. In the eyes of outsiders, the speed of the Stone Man Elder was always a step slower. Every time he arrived, Yi Shiwen had already killed the person and left. At this time, he could only watch helplessly as Yi Shiwen casually slaughtered those profound death stage and profound life stage experts like cabbages on the roadside. His battle prowess was simply shocking. Even mid-profound death stage experts, who were on par with him in terms of battle prowess, were unable to perform any better. It seemed as though the gap between their battle prowess had already reached the point where he could completely ignore it. How terrifying. I thought that Yi Shiwen had already gone mad. Now it seems that we are all stupid. How could he not have some sort of backup when he dared to swagger back so boldly? Many people's mouths were wide open, and they didn't know what to say. What a terrifying massacre. Even if the people from the Divine Union and the desolate Heaven Palace managed to kill Yi Shiwen today, I'm afraid they would still be resentful. Dozens, no, hundreds of profound realm experts from both sides have fallen. Even such a colossus would suffer a blow to their vitality. He's really audacious. If there was a possibility of him reconciling with the Divine Union and the desolate Heaven Palace previously, I'm afraid that's no longer possible after this battle. Now that you mention it, I don't know why, but I think of someone who is similar to him. Don't tell me you're talking about the leader of the Divine Union? TSK. Now that you mention it, it seems like the leader of the Divine Union from many years ago was also like this. He killed his way out of the Divine Union. The leader of the Divine Union? Can he compare to the leader of the Divine Union? Many people immediately started discussing spiritedly. The Stone Man Elder's heart was simply dripping blood as he watched the experts fall like dumplings. An ordinary person would definitely be especially afraid of falling into a siege. However, this person was Yi Shiwen, and he simply wasn't afraid of such a siege. Especially after he had advanced to a certain range, his advantage was too obvious. Yi Shiwen's gilded tyrant form could even contend against top-notch Xian tools with his bare hands. Moreover, most of their attacks would be absorbed by the five elements Qian Yuan diagram. Therefore, he could easily tear them apart in a head-on battle. However, Yi Shiwen's gilded tyrant form didn't have the strength to contend against top-notch Xian tools. This battle was a reign of terror. It seemed like a rain of blood was falling from the sky, filling the sky and earth with the smell of blood. The experts of the Heaven Wasteland Palace nearby were also dumbfounded. The Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace could be considered as old rivals for many years. How could they not be clear about each other's strength? They were merely on par with each other. These Divine Union experts were being massacred. If they were in their shoes, they wouldn't be any better. Hence, even though they were watching the Divine Union members being massacred, they didn't have any reaction. They even wanted to turn around and escape. If it hadn't been for Elder Xian Ting's forceful suppression, they might have really escaped. They kept glancing at Elder Xian Ting. If Elder Xian Ting was still rational, he would definitely choose to let them turn around and escape. At Yi Shiwen's level, unless an expert at the late profound death stage appeared, any expert below the mid-profound death stage would be akin to sending themselves to their deaths. They would be slaughtered like vegetables by Yi Shiwen. They also understood what kind of strength this was, as there was no lack of such existences in the desolate Heaven Palace. They were invincible existences in the same realm. Even these people had been invincible existences in the past, when their cultivation levels weren't high, or after their deaths. There weren't many people who could contend against them. However, as their cultivation levels increased, their opponents also became stronger. It had been a long time since they had experienced such a battle. Elder Xian Ting's eyes flickered continuously. He had seen the miserable state of the Divine Union's people, but he wasn't willing to leave. Yi Shiwen had seriously injured him, turned him into a pauper overnight, and made him a laughing stock. It could be said that he had a deep-seated hatred for Yi Shiwen. He wouldn't be a gentleman if he didn't take revenge. However, while he was still hesitating, the experts of the Divine Union had already been massacred. Who knew how many years it would take to nurture dozens of profound Death Realm experts? However, they had fallen in just a few seconds. Roar! The Stone Man Elder roared like a wild beast. He had already unleashed his domain, petrifying everything around him in an attempt to slow down Yi Shiwen's speed. It was just that although Yi Shiwen's speed had slowed down, it was still not something that he could catch up with. The storm wings behind him that had not been unfolded were also unfolded at once. This time, not only did his speed not slow down, but it also became a bit faster. Swish! In an instant, he had already rushed into the group of experts of the desolate Heaven Palace. Boom! A terrifying golden sword light soared into the sky and shrouded Yi Shiwen. At this moment, Yi Shiwen was like a sharp sword that was about to split heaven and earth. He was ice-cold and merciless, and his killing intent was overflowing. At this moment, the experts of the desolate Heaven Palace felt their bodies turn cold. An extreme sense of danger made them feel uneasy. It was just like when they were facing profound life realm experts a long, long time ago, when they were merely king-grade experts. It was as if they were facing a deity, and they couldn't do anything about it. Everyone, get into formation. We definitely can't let this little bastard continue to be rampant. Suppress him. Elder Xian Ting shouted. At this moment, he had no choice but to fight, regardless of whether he wanted to leave or fight. Based on the situation that Yi Shiwen had just displayed, he simply wouldn't let them leave so easily. How could he let them leave if he didn't kill them completely? At this moment, many experts of the desolate Heaven Palace reacted one after another. They were still confronting Yi Shiwen. Originally, Yi Shiwen had deliberately let them go and only attacked the people of the Divine Union. This had almost made them misunderstand, as if this matter had nothing to do with them. However, Yi Shiwen's direct attack had awakened them all at once. Rumble! Dozens of invincible experts of the profound Death Realm and profound Life Realm joined forces to unleash their ultimate martial arts. It could be said to be earth-shattering. Dazzling rays of light directly swept in all directions. From afar, it seemed as if the end of the world had arrived. There was also a shocking thunderbolt force that descended directly towards Yi Shiwen. It was Elder Xian Ting. It could be said that he couldn't wait to peel off Yi Shiwen's skin and pull out his tendons. From the beginning, he hadn't taken Yi Shiwen seriously. Who would have thought that he would suffer such a great loss? These torrents of martial arts were all talismans that had materialized the laws of martial arts, and they all contained the trajectories of martial arts' unique skills. They were originally already the group of people closest to the realm of gods, and each of their attacks contained the supreme truths of martial arts. Even an existence at the peak of the profound death stage would have to temporarily hide from him. Chapter 1983. In particular, the martial arts that they had unleashed through the formation had unleashed their greatest might. Compared to their individual attacks, the difference in might was like the difference between the heavens and the earth. In the face of the incoming martial arts torrent that had already drowned the entire sky, Yi Shiwen turned a blind eye to it. Behind him, an incomparably huge, illusory figure of the Fist Dao incarnation fused into his body. Boom! 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 His aura crazily soared, while his entire figure also seemed to grow crazily. After fusing with the Fist Dao incarnation, his cultivation had merely doubled. However, his fighting strength had increased by several folds. His expression became even crazier. His blood-red eyes did not seem to belong to a human. Instead, they seemed to belong to an ancient, ferocious beast. He looked berserk and crazy. He did not even think of dodging. If it was a peak profound death stage expert, he would want to temporarily avoid the attack. However, he actually wanted to meet it head-on. The golden sword radiance that illuminated half the night sky became even more dazzling. The sword radiance condensed into a long sword. It was unknown how tall or wide it was, but it was extremely large. Boom! The huge golden sword radiance finally began to move. The originally vertical sword radiance slashed down with a loud bang. It was like a golden sword from ancient times that had cut through the chaos and split open the heavens and earth, causing people to be unable to open their eyes. Boom! The golden sword radiance and the martial arts that were as dazzling as shooting stars that had been unleashed by the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall finally collided. At that moment, the entire world seemed to have turned silent. Time seemed to have stopped at that very moment. Boom! After a moment of silence, a huge explosion swept through the air, creating a terrifying gust of wind. The pressure was so strong that the space began to become unstable. It began to distort and was forcefully twisted. Puff! 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 The experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall felt a blow on their chests. A mouthful of blood spurted out before their bodies were sent flying like shooting stars and cannonballs. All of them had suffered great losses and sustained serious injuries. Compared to the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall, Yi Shiwen was not much better. He was also sent flying for a long distance. From the looks of it, they seemed to be evenly matched. However, if one were to think about it, Yi Shiwen was only one person. Moreover, he was only at the intermediate profound death stage. On the other hand, he was facing dozens of profound death stage experts. In fact, there were even existences like Elder Xian Ting, who had already firmly stepped into the advanced profound death stage. Such a tie in itself had already proved Yi Shiwen's strength. More importantly, the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall had already been heavily injured and would not be able to do anything in a short period of time. On the contrary, Yi Shiwen only felt a slight tightness in his chest. Sure enough, it's still a bit difficult, right? Yi Shiwen said in a somewhat self-deprecating manner, but a grim smile hung on the corner of his mouth. Under the influence of the Star Beast bloodline, he actually chose to attack directly. However, it was still a bit difficult to deal with such a scene, even though he had integrated with the Fist incarnation. However, he had yet to condense his Sword Dao incarnation. To him, this was his trump card, and he would not easily reveal it. The Fist avatar had already been seen by others, so it did not matter. Originally, if he had only fused with the Fist embodiment, he would definitely not have been able to display such strength. Most importantly, After refining the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram to this level, under the state of the 5 emperors, his combat power had improved further. Even if it did not reach the level of the martial embodiment, it was definitely a world of difference. This was the real reason why he could fight against these people without using the sword embodiment. Impossible. How is this possible? Elder Xian Ting looked at Yi Shiwen in disbelief. He did not believe that Yi Shiwen could fight to such an extent. A few months ago, when he and Yi Shiwen were fighting, Yi Shiwen could only be regarded as being chased by him in a very embarrassing manner. Although he was seriously injured, at that time he could only rely on that amazing array to injure him. Yi Shiwen's own strength was still not something he could take seriously. However, since when was Yi Shiwen able to fight to such an extent with his own strength? Such progress was simply shocking. Monster! He really is a monster! The spectators from afar were also dumbfounded. Is this something that a profound death stage intermediate stage can do? He has actually already stepped into the profound death stage. He must have been hiding his strength all along. For the crowd, accepting that Yi Shiwen had already stepped into the profound death stage advanced stage was much better than the current situation. Originally, I thought that the Divine Alliance and the Desolate Heaven Palace would have to muster too many people to deal with a junior at the intermediate profound death realm. Now, it seems that not only did they muster so many people, they have clearly underestimated him. In fact, it might even be insufficient. How terrifying. Looks like I have to inform the clan to stop targeting Yi Shiwen. He is simply too powerful. No wonder he is such an illustrious existence. Even if we really want to take action, we should ask a legendary figure to take action. I feel that even a peak profound death stage expert is not safe. Die. At this moment, an earth-shattering roar resounded. A huge fist the size of a small mountain descended from the sky and directly smashed towards Yi Shiwen, who was still in midair. It was the Stone Man Elder. After lying low for a long time, he had finally made his move. He did not make a move even when the battle between Yi Shiwen and the Heaven Wasteland Palace was at its most intense. Taking advantage of this moment, he finally made his move. There was a sinister look on his stone-like face, and it seemed as if he was about to go crazy. Yi Shiwen had slaughtered dozens of mysterious realm experts in front of him, and if he couldn't bring back Yi Shiwen's head, then even if he could go back alive, he would inevitably be severely punished. Even a cold-hearted person like him could not help but shudder at the thought of those punishments. That huge fist was like a stone that had fallen into the water. The entire stone set off boundless raging waves. Boundless air waves swept out in an instant. Killing intent filled the air, directly distorting the space and piercing through the sky. Seeing this, Yi Shiwen did not dodge. Instead, he threw out a punch. Bang! There was an incomparably loud roar. Both sides were like two huge iron fists that collided in midair. The terrifying fist intent devoured frantically in the void. Yi Shiwen's cosmic fist intent and the Stone Man Elder's earth-shattering fist intent could be said to be shocking. Boom! There was an incomparably loud roar, and the entire sky was submerged by the slowly rising mushroom cloud. Crack, crack! The Stone Man Elder suddenly felt that the physical body that he was proud of had begun to crack. His arm began to faintly show dense cracks. A sharp pain suddenly swept through his heart, and his entire body was almost flipped over. Not good. At this time, he finally realized the problem. Yi Shiwen's legendary powerful physical body was far more than just a legend. In fact, it should be said that it was simply a fact. He did not know what kind of physical body it was, but it was actually more terrifying than his stone-like physical body. Thinking of this, he did not dare to stay any longer. If this went on, he might lose his life. He turned around and was about to escape. His entire body turned into a rumbling mountain range, and he wanted to escape. You want to leave now? Do you think you can make it in time? Yi Shiwen suddenly sneered. The golden sword in his hand instantly erupted with a terrifying sword light. It directly soared into the sky and turned into a long river of swordsmanship. It was mixed with a world-destroying sword intention and slashed towards the Stoneman Elder's head. Bang! The entire Stoneman Elder was severely injured in an instant. He could not dodge at all. His speed was far inferior to Yi Shiwen. When he was chasing Yi Shiwen, he might only be flustered and exasperated. But at this time, it was enough to kill him. He was severely injured in an instant, and blood splashed out all at once. However, he still struggled to escape. Even though he was seriously injured, he did not care much. He did not even dare to look back. He just wanted to escape for his life. However, just as he was about to escape, an incomparably huge foot descended from the sky and directly stepped on his huge wound. Ah! The Stone Man Elder was trampled into two halves in midair. Blood rained down from the sky, and the two halves of his body fell from the sky. The entire world was silent. Only Yi Shiwen's godlike figure was left. Everyone stood still in a daze. So many Xian realm experts had been slaughtered by Yi Shiwen a moment ago, but none of them had been as shocking as him slaughtering a stone golem elder. It could be said to be shocking. With the body of a profound Death Realm intermediate stage, Yi Shiwen had slaughtered a profound Death Realm advanced stage expert. No matter how they thought about it, it was enough to scare them to death. It was different from Elder Xian Ting. Previously, Yi Shiwen had used a formation to severely injure Elder Xian Ting. Even so, he did not manage to kill Elder Xian Ting in the end. The gap between the two was imaginable. Although the Stone Man Elder had only just entered the Profound Death Realm Advanced Stage, he had still entered the Profound Death Realm Advanced Stage, right? With just this battle, Yi Shiwen's name would truly shake the world. As a peerless expert and not a young junior. Let's go. Everyone, let's go. None of you are a match for him. Elder Xian Ting shouted hurriedly. In the end, his rationality had overwhelmed his hatred for Yi Shiwen. How could he not see that the Divine Union's entire army would be wiped out if this went on? It would serve as a warning to them. Many experts of the Desolate Heaven Palace had been waiting for this sentence. They frantically turned into flowing lights and fled in all directions. If they fled separately, perhaps a few of them would be able to escape. Trying to escape? It's too late. I've already said that all of you will die today. Chapter 1984. Trying to leave? It's too late. I've already said that all of you will die today. Yi Shiwen's incomparably cold voice was heard. Yi Shiwen, you've already entered the Heaven Wasteland Palace's must-kill list. No one can save you. The enmity between you and the Heaven Wasteland Palace will never end until one of us is dead. Elder Xian Ting roared heartbreakingly. Every single one of these profound realm experts was a treasure of the Heaven Wasteland Palace. They had spent a lot of effort to nurture them. They were different from the Divine Union. The Divine Union had only risen in a short span of a few thousand years. Most of the current top experts were found outside and not nurtured by the Heaven Wasteland Palace. Most of the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Palace were nurtured by themselves. The wealth required to nurture a profound realm expert was simply an astronomical figure. Many people did not even dare to think about it. It would undoubtedly be a huge blow to the Heaven Wasteland Palace if dozens of profound realm experts were to be lost here. He would also become a sinner of the Heaven Wasteland Palace. As an ancient and huge organization that had existed for God knows how many years, Elder Xian Ting's sense of belonging to the Heaven Wasteland Palace was far greater than Elder Stone's sense of belonging to the Divine Union. Yi Shiwen floated in the air, his black hair fluttering in the dark night. His eyes were incomparably cold and murderous. Elder Xian Ting's words did not have the slightest effect on him. They could not even shake his mind. To him, the enmity between him and the Heaven Wasteland Palace was already irresolvable. To many people, Yi Shiwen had merely provoked the dignity of the Heaven Wasteland Palace. In essence, it was not the most powerful conflict of interest. However, to these giants, wasn't it all for the sake of face? As for immortality, it was just an illusion. Among 10,000 profound realm experts, there might not even be one who could ultimately reach the Tao. One could imagine the difficulty of reaching the Tao. Just a little bit of face could attract a crazy pursuit, not to mention that he had killed someone from the Heaven Wasteland Palace. Since it was already a matter of life and death, there was no point in saying anything else. Yi Shiwen, we already know your origin. You're actually a member of the barren human race. They actually raised a beast like you. If anything happens to us, they won't have an easy time either. The barren human race will be completely destroyed. Elder Xian Ting couldn't help but roar hysterically when he saw that Yi Shiwen's expression didn't change at all. Yi Shiwen's ice-cold eyes swept over these experts. The ice-cold look in his eyes became more and more intense. These people's words had undoubtedly touched Yi Shiwen's bottom line. Hadn't he painstakingly come to the profound world to find a way to save the primordial era? These people from the Heaven Desolate Hall had actually used this matter to threaten him. Without a doubt, they had completely touched his reverse scale. Looks like you guys really won't die if you don't seek death, Yi Shiwen said indifferently. As soon as his voice fell, he suddenly appeared in front of an expert from the Heaven Desolate Hall. He directly grabbed him with his big hand, penetrated all his defenses, and grabbed his platinum like an iron hoop. The tighter the grip became, the invincible expert at the peak of the profound life realm suddenly flushed red. He couldn't breathe at all and was dragged by Yi Shiwen like a dead dog. Bang! There was a loud noise, and his neck was crushed by Yi Shiwen. The blood color in Yi Shiwen's eyes became more and more dignified. The Star Beast's bloodline began to affect his mind more and more. Usually, he would use the enlightening mind ancient tree to suppress the wildness in the Star Beast bloodline, so that he wouldn't be affected by it. But now, in order to obtain powerful combat power, he did not suppress the Star Beast bloodline. Gradually, the crazy and tyrannical aura had begun to affect his mind. Although it couldn't affect his judgment, it was enough to make him become more bloodthirsty and tyrannical. Everyone was frightened when they saw this. A peak of the profound life realm expert was like a little chick and had his neck casually snapped. He didn't even have the strength to resist. The shock that this gave them was far greater than when Yi Shiwen killed the Stone Man Elder in one move. It was because it was so easy, too easy. Without waiting for them to think too much, Yi Shiwen immediately moved. Like swinging a sledgehammer, he suddenly threw the peak of the profound life realm expert out. This peak of the profound life realm expert was instantly thrown out like a cannonball. He turned into a stream of light and ruthlessly smashed into an initial stage profound death realm expert who was running away. Bang! That initial stage profound death realm expert was caught off guard and was directly thrown, after which a crack sound could be heard, and all the bones in that initial stage profound death realm expert's body were smashed into pieces. Flesh and blood flew everywhere, and blood splattered everywhere. After which, he violently smashed into the ground and could no longer move. Clearly, he had directly stopped breathing. He didn't even have the time to let out a scream. All the spectators had goosebumps all over their bodies. Who had ever seen an initial stage profound death realm expert being smashed to death? Let alone seeing it. They had never even heard of such a fantastical thing. Which one of these profound death realm experts wasn't in existence with incomparably powerful strength? In the end, they were actually smashed to death. It was simply too frightening. Exactly how powerful is he? Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air and could not help but ask. In the sky, the green figure was like an incomparably terrifying monster draped in human skin at this moment. Yi Shiwen's gilded tyrant form, in addition to the 5 emperors, was unleashed in an instant. The power seemed to be able to penetrate the stars. It was extremely terrifying. This is too terrifying. The experts of the Heaven Desolate Palace are like clay figurines in his hands. He can casually beat them to death. He's simply inhuman. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the figure in the void, who seemed like the reincarnation of a fierce god. They firmly remembered this figure, and definitely could not provoke this person. Although no one truly believed that Yi Shiwen was truly a match for the Heaven Desolate Palace and the Divine Union, they had merely underestimated him. Even so, Yi Shiwen was simply too terrifying. Damn it! Die, die, die! Elder Xianting could not help but pounce forward when he saw another 2 people die in Yi Shiwen's hands. At this moment, he no longer had any thoughts of escaping. He could already tell that Yi Shiwen couldn't wait to tear him into pieces. There was no way Yi Shiwen would let him off. He definitely had no chance of escaping. All he could do was try his best to cover the escape of the others. Yi Shiwen did not panic in the slightest as he faced Elder Xianting. A streak of golden sword chi rapidly condensed in his hand. Rumble! In an instant, the sword chi soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, it charged into the horizon. In the horizon, the sword chi continuously hummed, before splitting into countless sword lights that chased after the escaping experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall. Bang! 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 These experts of the Heaven Desolate Palace were hit one after another. They did not even have the time to scream before they turned into a cloud of blood mist. They were no match for him at all. They were already seriously injured, and now they could not even block a single sword strike. Elder Xianting appeared to have gone crazy. He had never imagined that the situation would develop in such a manner. If he had imagined it, he might not have let Yi Shiwen off. However, he would have been extremely cautious. At the very least, he would have waited for a peak profound death stage expert to arrive before taking action. That way, he would not have given Yi Shiwen such an opportunity. Tears of blood almost flowed out of his eyes. They were all dripping blood. These were the elites of the Heaven Desolate Palace. Walala! The power of thunder swept over frantically, forming a sea of thunder and lightning. Elder Xianting was like a thunder god walking in the human world. He was extremely powerful and terrifying. Yi Shiwen was expressionless. However, he could feel the rapid consumption of martial power in his body. It was extremely difficult to maintain both himself and the fist incarnation at the same time. After the intense massacre just now, he had instantly consumed a large amount of martial power. Although the power of the 5 emperors was peerless, the consumption of martial power was also astronomical. Moreover, he had mobilized the bloodline of the Star Beast. If it was an ordinary person, they would have used up all their martial power. Even though Yi Shiwen's martial power was far superior to ordinary people, he could not withstand such a crazy consumption. Let's end this quickly and get rid of this old dog immediately. Yi Shiwen's eyes were filled with incomparable determination. Boom! A domain of the power of wind and thunder swept out from his body and collided with Elder Xianting's domain of thunder. The power of wind and thunder devoured each other and turned into martial talismans that collided with each other. The battle was extremely intense. And at this moment, Yi Shiwen finally moved and shouted loudly. Rumble! The gold emperor's sword in his hand emitted a shocking light. The sword radiance was like a river flowing backwards as it swept out. It cut the sky into two and swept towards Elder Xianting's body. Elder Xianting did not dodge. Or rather, he did not have the time to dodge at all. He was hit on the spot, and the countless thunder and lightning around his body were instantly annihilated and turned into nothingness. The space collapsed crazily, and it was like the scene of the end of the world. The sword light cleaved Elder Xianting into 2 halves on the spot. He didn't even have time to react. His body wasn't as good as that of the Stoneman Elder. So, he couldn't even withstand Yi Shiwen's sword in his peak state. There was silence between heaven and earth. Only the space was silently collapsing. Chapter 1985. The experts of the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace were all annihilated. It was a complete uproar. Just like boiling water, it immediately caused a commotion. Perhaps, before this matter spread, many people in the Xian world did not care much about Yi Shiwen's matter. After all, such people happen many times in the Xian world every year. Although there were not many people who dared to challenge the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace, there was no doubt that such people existed among the billions of people in the mysterious world. Perhaps because of one reason or another, they either actively or passively fought with the experts of the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace. However, it was difficult for such people to escape the attacks of these behemoths, no matter what the reason was. It could even be said that it was simply impossible. Therefore, many people basically turned a deaf ear to it. As for young heroes and the like, there would be many emerging every year, But so what? In the future, there would only be 1 in 100 who could truly reach the peak. Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen would actually reach the peak and slaughter hundreds of mysterious realm experts from both sides in one breath? Such a loss was almost comparable to the losses these huge forces suffered when they encircled some of the terrifying existences in the profound world battlefield. As long as one reached the mysterious realm, it would take a lot of time and effort to nurture any expert. Everyone could imagine how furious the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace would be if they were able to nurture such an expert who had died in the hands of Yi Shiwen. Originally, some people might have thought that Yi Shiwen was only suffering from moss skin disease, but now, who would dare to say so? Which moss skin disease could reach such a degree? While the mysterious world was in shock, the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union quickly listed him as a must-kill target and even issued a wanted order to kill him completely. There were even rumors that some people saw a legendary figure in the Divine Union who had been in seclusion for a long time, personally searching for traces of Yi Shiwen, wanting to kill him completely to remove any future troubles. Any legendary figure in the mysterious world could be said to be a supreme figure. In the absence of gods, the existence of a legendary figure was equivalent to the existence of a force's nuclear weapon. Wasn't the reason why the human race had declined these years because the only legendary figure was about to die? Was that why the demon race became more and more arrogant and wanted to bully the human race? One could imagine the status of a real legendary figure in the mysterious world. Under such circumstances, no one was optimistic about Yi Shiwen anymore. Although he still had the vague protection of the Nameless Tao College, and no one dared to attack the people of the Nameless Tao College, the premise was that he had to become a disciple of the Nameless Tao College. And there were still 5 years before the Nameless Tao College opened. There were too many changes in these 5 years. As long as the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace searched with all their might, no one could escape. As long as he couldn't hold on for more than 5 years, the Nameless Tao College's protection would be empty talk. However, if he could hold on for more than 5 years, the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace would have to stop. No one could provoke the wrath of the Nameless Tao College, for a large number of experts appeared between the two forces. Someone claimed that the Heaven Sect and the Union would send a large number of experts from the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union in union. They wanted to carry out a carpet search so that Yi Shiwen could not escape. Almost immediately, they sealed the entrance to the mysterious realm battlefield. Although the mysterious realm battlefield was huge, it was only a small part of the entire mysterious world. Given the strength of the two forces, they could not completely seal the entrance and make Yi Shiwen come out. However, if he tried to come out, he would definitely be discovered by the two forces. Therefore, everyone was sure that Yi Shiwen was still in the mysterious realm battlefield. It was just that no one could determine where he was. However, they also believed that with such a carpet search, the possibility of him being found would increase greatly. It was almost a matter of time. At this tense moment, in the depths of the mysterious realm battlefield, countless experts of the Heaven Wasteland Palace were anxiously preparing in a huge camp. When these experts linked up, it could be said that they were connected to each other. Ancient formations were laid out, giving off terrifying fluctuations. In the sky, there were over 1,000 battle fortresses floating in the air, revealing their malevolent faces. Metallic lusters continuously flickered in the sky. At a glance, the entire area was simply endless. In these fortresses and tents, countless experts were gathering, dispersing, exploring, and so on. They looked like a large group of densely packed ants. Among these shuttling experts, an ordinary man in green clothes also rushed over. When he saw such a scene, he could not help but be slightly shocked. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have dared to believe that the strength of the Heaven Wasteland Palace had actually reached such a level. If this punitive army was placed in the mysterious world, it would be enough to sweep everything in all directions. The huge power that the Heaven Wasteland Palace had accumulated for countless years was completely displayed in front of Yi Shiwen at this moment. Yes, this person was Yi Shiwen. He had only changed his appearance slightly, before entering the heaven desolate hall. It was likely that no one would have thought that he was Yi Shiwen. More importantly, no one would have thought that he would actually dare to directly enter the camp where the experts of the Heaven Desolate Hall and the Divine Alliance were gathered while being chased by the Heaven Desolate Hall and the Divine Alliance. In the eyes of many people, this was no different from courting death. However, to him, this was the safest place. As the saying goes, one would be put in a dead end and then be reborn. As the saying goes, a single leaf obscures the eye. Therefore, the most dangerous place was also the safest place. Of course, the prerequisite was that he could not expose his identity. Otherwise, with so many experts gathered here, he would not be able to escape. To him, impersonating an expert of the Heaven Wasteland Palace was not difficult at all. He had killed many experts of the Heaven Wasteland Palace, and their wealth had also fallen into Yi Shiwen's hands. Among them, there was a token that could prove his identity. After being refined by him, it became the best way for him to conceal his identity. Previously, he had killed so many experts in one go, causing a commotion among the people of the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union. Therefore, he could only do his best to avoid the pursuit of these two forces. At that time, he would not have to fear the threat of these two forces. When he was hiding here, he accidentally discovered that the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall were actually gathered here. Hence, he disguised himself and quietly snuck in. Due to the token, he did not encounter any obstructions as he charged in. After killing hundreds of mysterious realm experts, he had directly obtained tens of millions of Xian pills. Overnight, he had recovered more than half of his wealth, which made him slightly relieved. However, this alone was far from enough. What he needed to do now was to break through to the advanced profound death stage before the Nameless Tao Academy opened in 5 years. If he could break through to the advanced profound death stage, his battle prowess would be comparable to those who had stepped into the peak of the profound death stage. At that time, wouldn't he be invincible in the Nameless Tao Academy? However, if he wanted to break into the advanced profound death stage, apart from the pool of essence blood that could provide him with endless power, Xian pills were still insufficient. Although tens of millions of Xian pills seemed like a lot, he had to upgrade both his Sword Dao Incarnation and his Fist Dao Incarnation in order to advance. In other words, these two martial Dao incarnations had to advance to a whole new realm. This would consume an astronomical amount of Xian pills. 10 million Xian pills was simply not enough. He would need at least another 10 million Xian pills. This was the difficulty of condensing two martial Dao incarnations at the same time. If he continued to cultivate and condensed even more martial Dao incarnations, the wealth he would need would be even more astronomical. After all, it was impossible for his powerful fighting strength to come without a price. Have you heard about the Yi Shiwen? Two figures walked past Yi Shiwen. One was tall, and the other was short. They had strange looks on their faces, and no one knew what race they were from. In the myriad realms, transforming into a human form was a major trend. However, many races still retained the characteristics of their original race, just like monsters. How could I not have heard about it? This matter has really blown up recently. We joined forces with the Divine Union, and over 100 profound realm experts were actually slaughtered by him alone. This kind of fighting strength is simply terrifying. Even I wouldn't dare to say that I could kill a profound realm expert who is 2 realms lower than me, said the short man. The short man also had a sorrowful expression on his face. Fortunately, he wasn't the one who had gone. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to stand here and talk now. Who could have imagined that the combined attack of 10 experts who were on the same level as Yi Shiwen, 2 experts who were at a higher level than him, and dozens of experts who were at the peak of the profound life realm, would actually be completely annihilated by a junior? If it had not already happened, it was likely that no one would believe such a ridiculous matter. Yes, to him, such a thing was too ridiculous. Fortunately, we weren't involved in this matter. Otherwise, we would be the ones dying now. However, where did this Yi Shiwen come from? Asked the tall man. I'm not sure. I heard that he is from the ancient demon realm. However, he is dead for sure this time. I think he must be crazy to actually dare to do such a thing. It is said that a mythical realm palace master will be mobilized to personally kill him and all the humans from the ancient demon realm, said the short man with a murderous look on his face. Chapter 1986. Kill all the humans in the ancient demon realm. This sentence immediately attracted Yi Shiwen's attention. His eyes flickered with unconcealable killing intent. Perhaps because the two were in the camp of the Heaven Wasteland Temple, they did not have the slightest bit of vigilance. They did not even have the slightest bit of vigilance against their own people. That's right. This time, we will uproot the ancient ancestor sect that has occupied this world and has been against us for hundreds of thousands of years. After we get rid of this internal threat, we will go straight to the ancient demon realm and slaughter all the humans there. This will serve as a warning to those who dare to provoke the Heaven Wasteland Temple. No one can provoke the Heaven Wasteland Temple without paying any price, the short man said coldly. The ancient demon realm is the foundation and territory of the ancient demon realm. The treasures it contains are simply enviable. Who knows how many demon gods, kings, and even demon emperors have appeared in the ancient demon realm. With such a foundation, if we can get rid of a few of their so-called royal families, we can obtain a large amount of wealth. Not to mention the other things, just the martial arts manuals that record the deity level and above are hard to come by. If those top martial arts manuals that can only be practiced by the upper echelons can be popularized, it will mean to us. You should understand what it means for us. If the ancient demon realm did not suffer heavy losses in the previous invasion of the heaven realm and have yet to recover, how would we dare to look at the ancient demon realm? The short man said with a sneer. However, a world like the ancient demon realm that was once extremely glorious is very tricky and difficult to deal with. Maybe there is some terrifying foundation left behind. I'm afraid we may not be able to deal with it, especially this kind of powerful world that has produced emperor-level existences. It is even more terrifying. If there is any magical weapon left behind, it is enough to destroy our entire expedition team. The tall man could not help but say with some worry, "What does it matter? Anyway, even if the sky falls, there are still those myth-level experts to support it. How can we, two insignificant profound life realm experts, worry about it?" The short man said with a sneer. "But we have to be careful. Although Yi Shiwen has disappeared, we may be dragged into the search at any time. If we encounter him, we will be in big trouble." The tall man said, "What's there to be afraid of? I've heard from the inside that Yi Shiwen's matter has already been taken over by those freaks of the Heaven Wasteland Battle Squad. I think you should also know what kind of freaks they are. Any one of them can easily kill the leader of a small force, and a few of them can even form a team to wipe out a small force. Compared to these freaks, what is Yi Shiwen?" The short man said indifferently. Their voices were getting further and further away. Yi Shiwen frowned slightly. He had obtained several important pieces of information from the conversation between these two people. After this expedition army dealt with the so-called ancient ancestor religion, they would probably go on an expedition to the desolate antiquity. Yi Shiwen felt his blood run cold just by looking at such a huge army. Not to mention, it was a disaster for the ancient barons. Such an army was probably enough to wipe out the entire primordial era. This made him anxious. However, the people of the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Alliance had not found him yet. If he were to escape at this time, he would very quickly alarm the people of the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Alliance. At that time, he would probably face an endless pursuit. He did not believe that there was not a single tracking expert among the two great forces. He was afraid that it would be very difficult for him to escape if he were to reveal even the slightest trace of himself. Although Yi Shiwen had not heard of the Heaven Wasteland Battle Squad, he could make a few guesses from the short man's words. Any one of them could casually kill a leader of a small force. What kind of powerful battle strength was that? During the heavenly tribulation, even a leader of a small force would at least be in existence of the late profound death stage, or even the peak profound death stage. However, he would still be easily killed by them. From this, it could be roughly determined that the strength of the members of the Heaven Wasteland Battle Squad was probably not lower than the peak Profound Death stage. A powerful battle squad made up of experts at the peak Profound Death stage and above. Just thinking about it was enough to understand how terrifying it was. This should be the trump card and trump card of the Heaven Wasteland Palace. Now that his matters were being taken over by these people, the pressure on him would undoubtedly soar to a whole new level. The pressure in his heart was also increasing. Forget it. I have to settle the matter before me first, Yi Shiwen said. Another idea suddenly appeared in Yi Shiwen's mind. He still needed tens of millions of Xian pills to step into the late Profound Death stage in one go. However, this gap of tens of millions of Xian pills was not so easy to make up for. After all, unless he encountered the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Alliance, where would he find these tens of millions of Xian pills? However, it was different now. The army of the Heaven Wasteland Palace had gathered and was about to invade the ancient ancestor sect. It just so happened that he could fish in troubled waters. This sect was able to confront the Heaven Wasteland Palace for so many years. One could well imagine how deep the foundation of this sect was. If he could loot their treasury, he would not only become rich overnight. That kind of wealth was simply unimaginable. He would also be able to satisfy the wealth he needed for his cultivation. If it was any other time, such an idea would not be possible. The treasury of a great sect was definitely of utmost importance. How could anyone casually invade it? This was absolutely impossible. There would definitely be countless guards guarding it. However, the invasion of the Heaven Wasteland Palace outside was very urgent, which created the best opportunity for Yi Shiwen to sneak in. This kind of chaotic situation was the best time to fish in troubled waters. After this idea emerged in his mind, he could not suppress it anymore. A horse would not get fat without grass at night. If it was not for this unexpected windfall, he would not have been able to reach his current level. However, although it was said that riches came from danger, and nothing ventured, nothing gained, the danger would definitely be multiplied. For the ancient ancestor religion to be able to contend against the Heaven Wasteland Palace for so long, it was absolutely impossible that they did not have a myth realm expert. Therefore, the greatest enemy that Yi Shiwen would have to face after sneaking in would be the myth realm expert of the ancient ancestor religion. If he was discovered by a myth realm expert, it would be difficult for him to escape. Previously, he had escaped from the hands of the Abyss Demon Master several times. However, that was because the Abyss Demon Master did not use his full strength. Otherwise, he would not have been able to escape. Therefore, he did not have any intention of underestimating a myth realm expert. However, although it is a little dangerous, there is no other way to step into the advanced profound death stage in a short period of time. I'll go all out. Yi Shiwen gritted his teeth. At this time, he could only stake everything on one throw. In the sky, battle clouds were densely packed like a mountain pressing down. They covered the huge continent in the distance. This continent should be the largest and final ancestral land of the ancient ancestor religion. Just like the countless experts of the Heaven Wasteland Palace, there were also countless experts of the ancient ancestor sect. All kinds of war machines were activated. The battle between both sides could be said to be triggered at any moment. Suddenly, an incomparably loud roar resounded. The entire world began to faintly tremble. There was an incomparably frightening power sweeping across. In the face of this frightening power, many of the formations set up by the ancient ancestor sect collapsed in an instant. Rumble! The space was forcefully torn apart. An incomparably huge hand stretched out from within and slammed down towards the entire continent, as if it wanted to crush the entire continent. Ancient ancestor sect, you actually dared to defy the will of the heavens. For so many years, you have dared to go against the Heaven Wasteland Palace. Today, your fate has come to an end. It's time for you to die. An incomparably loud sneer resounded from the spatial crack behind the huge hand, shaking the entire continent. On that piece of land, countless experts who had been guarding the formation exploded along with the formation. They didn't even have time to scream before they died tragically. What an arrogant tone. If you want to destroy the ancient ancestor sect, let's see if your heaven wasteland palace has such a sharp tongue. Suddenly, an astonishing saber radiance directly slashed out from the depths of the continent, directly slashing the huge hand into pieces. It turned into a sky full of spiritual chi that swept out. Following this incomparably terrifying collision, the experts of both sides seemed to have completely received some sort of order and rushed out. From within that crack, a towering figure walked out. When he used the Transcendence World mystique, it was exceptionally mighty. The surrounding space of this tall figure was vaguely distorted, making it impossible to see his face clearly. One could only vaguely see that he was an extremely frightening expert. A myth realm expert. Yi Xuan immediately gasped. Although it was not the first time he had seen a myth realm expert, he had never seen a battle between true myth realm experts. Evidently, such a battle was about to occur. Heaven Wasteland War Immortal. Your Heaven Wasteland Palace still has a long way to go if you want to destroy the ancient ancestor sect. Along with this cold snort, another figure that was as tall as a mountain swept out from that continent. Both of them were myth realm experts. When they confronted each other, their power was almost equal. Ancient ancestor sect leader, it's not too late for you to surrender now. Given your strength, it's enough for you to become a hall master of our Heaven Wasteland Palace. Otherwise, when you die, it won't be good for your 10,000 years of hard work to turn into ashes. Heaven Wasteland War Immortal said. Chapter 1987. Stop dreaming. It's impossible for the Heaven Wasteland Hall to conquer the ancient ancestor sect. The patriarch of the ancient ancestor sect said coldly. Between the two sides, it could be said that a single word of disagreement would lead to a complete fight. Waves of terrifying fluctuations spread out in all directions. Many disciples from both sides didn't even have time to react before they died tragically under this huge shockwave. What a terrifying scene it was. Team after team of experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall shouted as they charged towards the ancient ancestor sect. Team after team of soldiers swept across. The sky was densely packed with Dao soldiers of the Heaven Wasteland Hall. These Dao soldiers were different from ordinary experts. Their power could be raised to the limit in a military formation. On the side of the ancient ancestor sect, there were many Dao soldiers charging out. If one looked from the highest point, it would be like two terrifying torrents colliding. Both sides were killing each other with terrifying efficiency. They were doing their best to kill each other. In an instant, countless people would be blasted into pieces. It was unknown how many people would die every second. For the ancient ancestor sect, this was the first time someone had charged into their base camp. This had never happened before. Therefore, the disciples of the ancient ancestor sect were a little flustered. However, their will was even firmer. This was their homeland, and there was no way to retreat. Ancient formations were activated. Many experts of the ancient ancestor sect who had been in seclusion for many years came out and killed the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall. On the side of the Heaven Wasteland Hall, there were more experts. The Heaven Wasteland Hall had gathered a large portion of their strength and was determined to get rid of the ancient ancestor sect that had been fighting against them for many years. Shoot! Suddenly, an expert of the Heaven Wasteland Hall shouted in the void. In an instant, the sky was covered by a dense number of arrows. It was like a dense dark cloud that covered everything in the sky and on the ground. Ah! 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 In an instant, a large number of people from the ancient ancestor sect fell. Lives were reaped one after another. Miserable screams represented the end of the lives of countless disciples of the ancient ancestor sect. Counterattack! An expert shouted from the depths of the continent. At this moment, an ancient and gigantic magic array was activated. All the spiritual energy around the edges of the magic array was instantly absorbed. Boom! Boom! In the blink of an eye, countless lightning dragons flickered and rolled within the dark clouds. Then, countless lightning snakes descended from the dark clouds, forming a sea of lightning. All the Dao soldiers of the Heaven Wasteland Palace that rushed in were either crushed into pieces or charred. On the other side, the counterattack of the Heaven Wasteland Palace arrived. The battle fortresses were fully opened, and streams of martial arts currents swept out, even directly sweeping into the depths of the continent. For a moment, it was unknown how many casualties were caused, but deep ravines were formed on the continent. This was a confrontation between two enormous powers. Every moment, a large number of lives were reaped. The terrifying collision caused people to be crushed into meat paste. Far behind them, the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall were calm and composed as they watched the Tao soldiers from both sides kill each other. No matter how many Tao soldiers were killed or injured, it had nothing to do with them. After all, they were not from the same system. Moreover, these Tao soldiers were trained in batches. Their importance could not be compared to the pampered experts. If they didn't use the Tao soldiers to charge into the formation and consume a large amount of the enemy's strength, then they would probably be in trouble. At that time, they would probably be beaten until they wailed and wailed. They were not good at such a large-scale battle. They were waiting for the moment when the morale of the ancient ancestor religion was completely exhausted. They understood this logic very well, and they had been waiting for the moment when the morale of the ancient ancestor religion was completely exhausted. Yi Shiwen was mixed among these people. At this moment, the battle had already begun. No one cared about this unknown guy. There were countless experts in the Heaven Wasteland Palace, and no one could recognize everyone. Therefore, Yi Shiwen mingled among them, and was completely at ease and contented. His gaze was completely focused on the battle between the two terrifying figures above. The legend realm expert of the Heaven Wasteland Palace, the Heaven Wasteland War Immortal, and the leader of the ancient ancestor sect. At this moment, both sides fiercely collided. A spear appeared in the hand of the Heaven Wasteland War Immortal, which directly turned into a mighty long river. It broke through everything, like a long dragon that broke free from all restraints, and directly charged towards the leader of the ancient ancestor sect. The ancient ancestor sect master's figure was a little frail. Even though he had executed the Dharma world and his body had become extremely huge, he still appeared skinny. Facing this shocking attack, he remained indifferent as though he couldn't see anything. At that instant, the blade radiance of the leader of the ancient ancestor sect turned into a huge blade sea, vaguely forming a universe. It was overturning the rivers and seas, and was omnipotent. It swept in all directions and headed towards the spear. Boom! The terrifying collision directly collapsed a large area of space. Even though this was the lair of the ancient ancestor sect and had been reinforced by dense formations, it still could not withstand the bombardment of the two experts of the legend realm. Everything collapsed, and the dark universe looked frightening. The blade radiance of the leader of the ancient ancestor sect was like an ocean and could destroy everything in an instant. But the spear of the Heaven Wasteland War Immortal was like a dragon in the sea, still free and unrestrained, cleaving the waves and sweeping across. The battle between the two sides was shocking, and they fought their way off into the distance. It was almost as if they were trying to avoid harming the people on their side. If these two god myths kept fighting like this, it was entirely possible that everyone on their side would be wiped out. The battle between both sides had directly turned into huge talismans, which constantly flickered in the sky and existed for an eternity. Yi Shiwen's eyes were fixed on both sides, and he did not dare to blink for a moment, for fear that he would miss something important if he blinked. It was not that he had not seen the experts of the legend realm fighting, and he had even personally experienced it a few times. But at that time, the Abyss Demon Lord did not take him seriously. He was just an ant, and the power of a casual attack was not so terrifying. Otherwise, how could he escape? So strictly speaking, this should be the first time he saw the battle between experts of the legend realm, and it was really very terrifying. No wonder the imperial court was almost breached overnight. Although there was a traitor in the Wang family, the imperial court could be said to be the last bottom line of humanity. It had been strengthened for God knows how many years, and it was a war fortress, If not for the Abyss Demon Lord being too terrifying, even if there was a traitor in the situation, it would not be able to break into the imperial court. Through the battle between the two experts of the legend realm, Yi Shiwen frantically analyzed the gap between him and the Abyss Demon Lord. Because he had not reached that level, he did not know who was stronger between these two people and the Abyss Demon Lord. Speaking of which, he had never seen the Abyss Demon Lord go all out. If he had been there when the Imperial Court was breached, perhaps he would have been able to see the Abyss Demon Lord go all out, and he would have been able to make a judgment. But no matter who was stronger between them and the Abyss Demon Lord, compared to the current Yi Shiwen, they were undoubtedly much stronger. What he was most afraid of now was the attack of experts of the Legend Realm. If such an expert attacked, he would most likely die on the spot. What was a person of the Legend Realm? Their achievements, their glory, were enough to become a legend, a myth that would be passed down from ancient times. That was why people called people of the Legend Realm as legends. Another reason was that reaching this realm was not something that just anyone could reach. It was truly a realm that only people of the Legend Realm could reach. For Yi Shiwen, such a battle was still too far away, but the things that were displayed were things that he could learn. For an ordinary expert of the profound Death Realm, trying to forcibly comprehend the martial arts of the Legend Realm was undoubtedly courting death. But he had the mysterious space and could forcibly digest and comprehend it. Although he did not know to what extent he could comprehend it, it would definitely be of great benefit to him. The mysterious space frantically revolved within his body, constantly emitting 5-colored rays of light, illuminating a certain space within his body like a paradise. 3 million Xian pills were gone. Yi Shiwen glanced at the Tianyuan mirror. Just the analysis of their previous exchange had consumed a total of 3 million Xian pills. This consumption was simply terrifying, but he could feel that his entire body was ascending. Although it might lead to him not having enough Xian pills to advance to the late profound Death Realm, he could not care so much at this moment. Gathering enough Xian pills to advance to the late profound Death Realm could be done slowly, but this kind of comprehension was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. How could he not know which was more important? Whoosh! Countless Xian pills were madly burned, turning into spiritual qi that flowed into his body. Another 500,000 Xian pills were instantly burned to nothingness. He could only grit his teeth and endure. He still had 10 million Xian pills which could last for a period of time. He could feel that his realm was ascending, and he had faintly comprehended a higher realm. Especially the ancient ancestor religion's leader, his blade technique made Yi Shiwen feel as though his horizons had been broadened. Blade technique could be used in such a way. Law talismans could be used in place of blade aura, sweeping out and cutting through everything. He could feel that his cultivation in the Saber Dao and Spear Dao were rising at a crazy rate. However, in comparison, the Saber Dao was much more shocking. He already had a vague direction for his next martial arts incarnation, which was the blade technique incarnation. Chapter 1988. For an ordinary person, even if they could sense that the battle between the two myth realm experts was extraordinary, they would still be confused. It was already very difficult for them to comprehend something. It was simply impossible for Yi Shiwen to crazily absorb and comprehend the Xian Qi. 100,000, 500,000, 1 million. Countless Xian cores were rapidly burning and flowing into the mysterious space. They were rapidly circulating and analyzing. Every time he analyzed something, he could feel that his realm was continuously rising. Although it was still unable to directly transform into strength, it had laid a very solid foundation for his future strength. He could feel that although his strength had not increased, his comprehension of the realm had deepened. Previously, he could only display 100% of his strength. Now he could display 120% of his strength. This was equivalent to increasing his strength in another way. This was also the reason why, at the same realm, there were some people who were much stronger than others. The reason was because they had a higher comprehension of the realm. Under the same circumstances, the strength that they could display was also far superior to others. After a long time, he felt as if 1,000 years or 10,000 years had passed. In any case, it was a very long time. He could feel as if he was wandering in the ocean of the great Tao. Just as he was about to lose himself in this feeling suddenly stopped. Only then did he realize that the Xian cores in his body had almost been consumed. This was why he had stopped from comprehending the mysteries. This was also something that could not be helped. After spending tens of millions of Xian cores to comprehend the great Tao, he had undergone an earth-shattering transformation from the inside out. It was as if he had been enlightened. Many ideas that he did not understand in the past had suddenly become clear after comprehending the battle. These were all unexpected surprises. However, it was a pity that he had not chosen enough. If he could continue comprehending the great Tao like this, he would be able to forcefully break into the profound death realm without relying on anything else. Even so, although he felt a little regretful, he was still relatively satisfied. There was nothing better. At this moment, the battle between the two myth realm experts was still ongoing in the sky. Their cultivations seemed to be on par. Boom! 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 That area had already been turned into a forbidden zone by the two legendary experts. Ordinary people were not allowed to approach. Even profound death stage experts did not dare to approach. Otherwise, they would be completely smashed into pieces. Both of them were mythical level experts with powerful skills. Such beings seemed to be able to last until the end of time, with no end in sight. With their strength, even if they were to fight for hundreds or thousands of years, it would still be difficult for them to completely exhaust their cultivation at this stage. The entire space had been completely turned into powder, and there was no possibility of it healing at all. Every time it tried to heal, it would be shattered by an even more powerful shockwave. Even the laws of space within had been interrupted, making it impossible for it to heal. Below them, the Tao soldiers from both sides were already fighting fiercely. In the most central area, no one knew how many people had died, and no one knew how many more would die. It was like a millstone. These Tao soldiers rushed in and were ground to death. In a battle of this level, unless a godmyth took action, there was no way anyone could survive. They would just be throwing their lives away. Rumble! A series of violent explosions rang out in the sky, rising and falling one after the other. It was as if there was an endless thunderstorm. Just when everyone thought that such a battle would continue until the end of time, there was a sudden change. In the void, a long whip broke through the space like a long dragon and charged towards the ancient ancestor sect. Bang! The long whip was like a long spear, and it hit the chest of the ancient ancestor sect leader. With a loud bang, the ancient ancestor sect leader, who was as tall as a mountain, was sent flying. He spat out a mouthful of essence blood. It fell directly into the group of Tao soldiers, and countless Tao soldiers who could not dodge in time were killed on the spot. The sudden change of the scene made everyone completely dumbfounded. No one had expected that someone would suddenly intervene, especially the experts of the ancient ancestor sect, who all cried out in sorrow. To them, the ancient ancestor sect leader was like heaven and earth. He was their greatest guarantee, and also the fundamental reason why they had the confidence to fight against the Heaven Wasteland Palace. Now that he was seriously injured, they suddenly felt their hearts sink, as though the sky was about to collapse. In particular, the top experts were in a complete mess. Their vision turned black, and they almost passed away. As for the long whip, it attacked again and wrapped around the ancient ancestor sect leader. The ancient ancestor sect leader wanted to break free, but there was no way. The long whip seemed to have a demonic nature, and it bound him tightly. For a while, there was nothing he could do. At this time, the spear of the Heaven Wasteland battle god fell from the sky. The spear pierced into the body of the ancient ancestor sect leader. Blood splattered and flowed like a river. Blood essence spurted out, and bone fragments flew. No one had expected that it would turn out like this. Everyone's eyes were filled with horror, and even the people of the Heaven Wasteland Palace were no exception. There was another Myth Realm expert who had intervened. There was a second Myth Realm expert who had intervened. This time, the sky was really going to collapse. In fact, many people of the Heaven Wasteland Palace originally did not think that they could take down the territory of the Ancient Ancestor Sect. After all, the Ancient Ancestor Sect and the Heaven Wasteland Palace had fought against each other so many times. Although the Heaven Wasteland Palace had always had the upper hand, they had never been able to take down the ancient ancestor sect. This time was probably no exception. They would heavily injure the ancient ancestor sect and slowly erase their vitality. Who would have thought that there would be a second myth realm expert? This was a huge matter. Even in the Heaven Wasteland Palace, a myth realm expert was a big shot. These big shots were either cultivating in the old lair of the Heaven Wasteland Palace, or fighting on the battlefields of various worlds. Although the ancient ancestor sect was powerful, they were merely one of the targets of the Heaven Wasteland Palace's campaigns. The true strength of the Heaven Wasteland Palace was far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Otherwise, they would not have been able to dominate a place like the Xian world. The Xian world was only a battlefield for them to fight for hegemony. However, for a colossus like the Heaven Wasteland Palace, it was naturally impossible to rely on the Xian world to support the consumption of the entire force. For a force to develop, especially such a terrifying colossus, the consumption of resources was even more astronomical. It was impossible to rely on the Xian world alone. After all, the Xian world was not a particularly high-level world. It was only because of the existence of the Xian world battlefield that countless Xian realm experts gathered there. This was the real reason why the Xian world was above all other worlds. As a result, a colossus like the Heaven Wasteland Palace secretly controlled countless worlds. They were constantly conquering various worlds, and the wealth they plundered was used to support the cultivation of the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Palace, or to directly manage a world, and then produce an endless stream of wealth. This was a little like the true martial domain. Under the banner of the true martial school, there were many countries, big and small, that were all under the control of the true martial school. The output of these countries was also continuously absorbed by the true martial school, which was why the true martial school could afford to nurture so many disciples. Otherwise, it would be impossible. As a colossus like the Heaven Wasteland Palace, the resources they needed were many times more than the true martial school. They could only conquer the worlds one by one. Under such circumstances, the ancient ancestor sect also clashed with the Heaven Wasteland Palace. One wanted to conquer the world, while the other wanted to expand outwards. It was inevitable that they would clash. Unfortunately, the ancient ancestor sect, which was still in the development stage, encountered the Heaven Wasteland Palace, which was at its peak. Not only was it unable to expand, but it was also repeatedly suppressed. Precisely because there were many worlds to conquer, those legendary figures were either in seclusion to break through the final checkpoint, or at the front lines, conquering the various worlds. To suppress the ancient ancestor sect, the Heaven Wasteland Palace had only dispatched one legendary figure, the Heaven Wasteland War Immortal. Unexpectedly, a second legendary figure had appeared at this time. Everyone suddenly realized that this time, the Heaven Wasteland Palace had definitely made up their mind to eradicate the huge obstacle that was the ancient ancestor sect. With a huge force with a legendary figure eyeing them from behind, how could they feel at ease? As the saying went, how could one allow others to sleep beside one's bed? This time, the Heaven Wasteland Palace was really going to kill them. After a moment of sluggishness, the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Palace reacted one after another, only to hear someone shouting from the crowd. Everyone, today is the day of the ancient ancestor sect's annihilation. Kill your way in. According to what is said, we can get half of the harvest. Kill. Everyone's eyes turned red. Although they could not obtain everything, just half of the harvest was enough to make people excited. No one could resist such a temptation, and one after another, they charged forward. Originally, they were afraid that the ancient ancestor sect leader would attack them. Now that the ancient ancestor sect leader was about to die, how could they care so much? They directly charged in. Yi Shiwen's figure was also mixed among these people, and he took advantage of the chaos and directly charged into the ancient ancestor continent. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.